those years as a superhero in Marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76 Vampire Manor. I remember I said that you are not welcome here. In a manor house in New York, a slightly old man was roaring at a group of young people in a rage. Old Lunka, don't be so excited. It's not good for your heart. We are just staying here for a while. We are compatriots. We should help each other, right? The leading young man didn't listen to the old man's words at all, and talked to himself. Robert, why don't you go to New Jersey to find your boss? I don't welcome you here, dirty half-blood. The old man named Lunka cursed unceremoniously. Old man, don't think we dare not kill you. The young man named Robert was obviously angered by the dirty half-blood. Robert and the 8 companions behind him all showed their terrible fangs and sharp claws. Their pupils began to shrink, the pupils became smaller and the whites of the eyes increased. This is a sign before the vampires launch an attack. But unexpectedly, it was Lunka who attacked first. Lunka held a metal cane in his hand, which is usually a decoration for gentlemen. Of course, it would be very painful if you use it to beat someone. As an old vampire who has seen a lot of storms, Lunka knows very well that it is not necessary to talk nonsense when it is time to take action. Although Lunka looks a little old, the powerful power of vampires has not diminished much. The cane was swung with only a shadow, and then it hit Robert's head directly. Bang! There is a solid metal ball at the handle of the cane. This ball hit Robert's temple directly, making a sound of a blunt object hitting the human body. Robert's neck was directly broken, and the part of his head was directly flattened, showing an abnormal depression. I said that the dirty half-bloods under Deconfess are not welcome here. Lunka's face still had the blood plasma that had just splashed when he hit Robert. At this time, Lunka looked very ferocious, and as he finished speaking, the 4 bodyguards standing behind him took action. They showed their weapons and their fangs. The 2 groups of vampires were on the verge of a fight in the manor. They didn't know that there were people watching the show in the distance. It seems that vampires are not as united as I thought. Peter was chatting with Luigi, who was hiding and observing in other places through the radio. Just like human society, we will also start wars to kill our own people. Luigi observed the situation inside the manor through a telescope. The traces of vampires were easier to find than he thought. Perhaps it was because their carnival was coming soon, so this group of vampires wanted to start the carnival in advance. Luigi and Peter patrolled in the dark and observed at several important intersections mentioned by Frank. It was Luigi who discovered the traces of this group of people. There were few vehicles on the road at midnight. Robert and his group drove 2 off-road vehicles and did not attract Luigi's attention. Until they directly dragged the 2 female corpses out of the car and casually abandoned them in the bushes on the side of the road. Luigi noticed that these were 2 young women who should have been very beautiful when they were alive. But the last expression on their faces was terrified and distorted, with naked bodies and bite wounds all over their bodies. Luigi realized what these guys were at that time. Originally, he was angry and wanted to draw a long knife to kill these guys on the spot. But on second thought, killing these guys now is just a way to vent our anger. The most important thing now is whether we can find more vampires hiding in New York. Any clues are particularly important at this point in time. Luigi notified the other 3 people while suppressing the bad breath in his chest. Frank and Damon were in other places far away and couldn't come, and maybe they would also gain something, so they didn't come to support Luigi. Spider-Man Peter was not far away, and he was also faster, so he rushed to the scene as soon as possible. The 2 followed the traces of the vehicle and came to this manor. I hope they can kill each other cleanly, so that we don't have to worry about it. When I think of what happened to the 2 girls just now, I feel uncomfortable all over. These damn vampires. Peter also saw the 2 horrible female corpses, and now he has no good feelings towards these vampires. If it was just an ordinary criminal, Peter might catch the criminal and hand him over to the police. But Peter hated vampires from the bottom of his heart. Maybe it was because of the religious beliefs in his family, or maybe in Peter's cognition, vampires did not belong to humans at all. Peter did not object to the purification of vampires. Quiet, Spider-Man, let's see what these ghosts want to do. Luigi asked Peter not to speak first and quietly observe what this group of vampires were going to do. Lunka, the owner of the manor, was a 500-year-old vampire. He was one of the first vampires to immigrate to the New World. He was also a pure-blooded vampire. In his opinion, mixed-blood vampires or blood slaves should be born inferior to pure-blooded vampires. There were many purebloods who held the same idea as him. They were all proud of their pure bloodline. They looked down on mixed-blood vampires or transformed vampires. Not to mention the lower-level blood slaves. In their eyes, these vampires were only worthy of being servants, such as Lenka's bodyguards. When did such low-level vampires dare to have an equal dialogue with noble purebloods? The one who brought about this change was the damned Deacon Fess, the damned transformed vampire. How many years had he been born? He dared to question the unchanging power rules of the vampire empire for thousands of years. Lenka hated Deacon Fess very much, and also hated his followers very much. Kill all these guys. Lenka ignored Robert's accomplices and ordered his men lightly. The vampire bodyguards took out magazines in their pistols expressionlessly and took out special magazines from their arms. Damn. This old guy really wants to kill us. TMD actually took mithril bullets. The sharp-eyed vampires have already seen that the bullets in the magazines in the hands of the bodyguards are different. Damn, get rid of these guys. Someone shouted. The 8 young vampires took out their pistols and daggers to prepare for preemptive strikes. For vampires, no matter how serious the injury is, they can recover. So even if Robert was broken in the neck by Lenka, it was actually no big deal. Although it hurts a little, he won't die. At most, they need to rest for 1 or 2 days. However, the injuries caused by mithril are something that vampires cannot recover from. It is something that can cause fatal injuries. Mithril is not pure silver, because although pure silver can also harm vampires, pure silver is too soft. Vampires' skin is very tough, and it is difficult to break their skin if weapons are made of pure silver. Not to mention that if vampires have defensive equipment, pure silver will be even more useless. Therefore, mithril is a specially refined metal, and its synthesis formula has always been in the hands of only a few people and organizations. Mithril is more harmful to vampires than pure silver. Just a slight contact with the skin will cause a severe burning sensation and scars that are difficult to recover. In the vampire empire, those who are able to manufacture or purchase mithril weapons are generally those old-fashioned vampires. They have money and power in the empire, and at the same time, they hinder the rise of newcomers. This is the real irreconcilable contradiction between pure-blooded vampires and mixed-blooded vampires. This group of young vampires obviously had no ability to get mithril weapons. Although they took out their Colt M1911 pistols and started shooting at the bodyguards didn't even have the slightest idea of dodging. Run. We have to leave here first, damn it. Lenka is crazy. A young vampire was ready to run away. Because he had seen the bodyguards push the mithril bullets into the gun chamber. Young people are sometimes so stupid, often challenging the patience of those in power with self-righteous courage. And never measure the huge gap in strength between the two sides. This kind of courage is not worthy of admiration, because it is more stupid than courage. Deacon Fess is indeed a huge force in the vampire empire now, making many old-fashioned pure-blooded vampires afraid of him, even afraid of him. But this does not mean that they will be afraid of the gang under Deacon. A pig was blown into the sky by the strong wind, but it does not mean that the pig can fly. Robert and his accomplices paid the price for their ignorance and stupidity. I hope they can learn a lesson in the future. Oh, I'm sorry, they probably won't have a future. The young vampires were ready to flee, but a group of bodyguards appeared on their way back. They were holding shotguns loaded with mithril bullets, and under the attack of the 2 gangs of bodyguards, this group of ignorant vampires turned into a cloud of ashes in the air, drifting in the air, and then disappeared without a trace. It doesn't look like both sides are hurt. Peter's tone was a little regretful. Well, the show is over and we should get to work. This time we may have caught a big fish. Luigi has already taken out a mithril dagger and is ready to sneak into the vampire manor. If you like this book, please collect and recommend it. Your support is the author's greatest motivation. Chapter 77, Strangling a Vampire. Spider-Man, you go around from the back, and I will break through from the front to create chaos. Let's purify these vampires. Luigi's strategy is very simple, that is, to attack from the front to attract attention. Then let Peter break through from the back, and attack these vampires from the front and back. Luigi now wants to make a big noise for these vampires. According to the information, there are still a lot of vampires in the United States. It is not easy to eliminate them all, But we have to give these vampires some warnings, which is called knocking them out and to scare the tiger, so that they know that their actions are being watched. Let them divert their attention and attract Liji's group, so that they dare not kill ordinary people so recklessly. Of course, if there is a chance, Liji doesn't mind eliminating all vampires. And there is another point. Liji has not had much reputation income recently. The website opened by Nightwalker fans has now increased traffic. The Nightwalker Alliance website is not only promoting Nightwalker alone, but also Spider-Man who acts with Nightwalker has been exposed. So even if the Nightcrawler Alliance website can bring Liji a certain amount of reputation, this part was diverted to Spider-Man Peter Parker. Now Liji is a pauper, with only a few hundred points of reputation. So he plans to make some big news here to increase his reputation. Lanka's Manor Villa is quite large, with an area of nearly 20 acres, which is almost the size of 2 standard football fields. In New York, where every inch of land is valuable, this is definitely a luxury house. After killing Robert and others, some bodyguards were using tools to clean up the blood and ashes left on the ground. Peter had already gone around to the back of the villa under Liji's arrangement. Nightcrawler, I'm already in place. Peter contacted Liji through the headset. Okay Spider-Man, I will create chaos in the front and try to attract the bodyguards inside the villa. You will find the old man we just saw and subdue him. Liji replied. I believe this old vampire can definitely bring us a lot of important information. Being able to own such a big mansion, I believe this old vampire must have a certain status in the vampire empire. Liji does not intend to let this old guy die so easily. So Peter's task is to find that guy and subdue him. Most of the bodyguards in Lanka Manor returned to their original positions, leaving only a few people to clean up the garbage. Liji, who had been hiding in the dark, began to act. An egg-sized ultraviolet grenade flew towards the guard at the main gate of the manor villa. Ultraviolet rays are not only lethal to vampires, but also to humans. Super strong ultraviolet radiation can cause various lesions on people's skin, so ultraviolet grenades are actually not very operational. In addition, it is not difficult to resist ultraviolet radiation with current technology, so since the middle of the last vampire war, this weapon has been gradually abandoned. But when the vampires are not prepared, this thing is still very useful for surprise attacks. The 2 guards at the main gate of the manor only saw a massive something flying over in the darkness, but they didn't know what it was. However, the 2 professionally trained vampires quickly took out their guns and took a defensive posture. However, this kind of alert was useless. The ultraviolet grenade suddenly exploded when it was blocking the 2 people. Different from the shockwave fragments and high-temperature killing produced by the explosion of ordinary grenades. The explosion sound of the ultraviolet grenade was very light. There was only a low hiss sound, and then the grenade split into 2 halves. The separated grenades emitted a strong purple light, which was very conspicuous in the darkness. Even Liji, who threw the grenade from 30 meters away, could feel this strong light. Fortunately, the killing distance of ultraviolet radiation was only 15 meters. Then the radiation intensity began to decay rapidly. Otherwise, Liji would have to worry about going to the skin hospital for treatment tomorrow. This super strong ultraviolet light is quite deadly to vampires. The 2 bodyguards who were originally solemn realized that something was wrong when they saw the grenade emit the first purple light. Now is not a war period with humans, and no vampire will wear anti-radiation clothing that hinders movement every day. Ordinary clothing cannot completely protect against ultraviolet radiation. Purple light is like cold ice meeting hot magma for vampires. Ultraviolet light instantly burned the skin of the 2 vampires. If you get close, you can smell the smell of barbecue coming from them. The tough skin of vampires cannot protect them, and their proud super healing ability is useless under the purple light. First, the skin of the vampires was completely vaporized, and then their flesh and blood began to burn at high temperature. In a short time, the blood in the vampires' bodies was evaporated. Their muscle tissue began to carbonize, and their bones became fluffy and crispy like a turkey that was baked at low temperature in an oven for 4 hours. This strong purple light lasted for a very short time, less than 2 seconds at most. But the 2 vampires had lost their signs of life and became 2 pieces of charcoal. The changes at the main gate alerted the other vampires in the villa. Many vampires took out their weapons and rushed towards the main gate. Liji also chose to attack the main gate to attract firepower for Peter. Liji only had 6 ultraviolet grenades on him. At this time, While the other vampires had not put on protective clothing, Lychee directly threw 5 grenades into the crowd of vampires. The grenades thrown with internal force fly a long distance, because strong ultraviolet rays can also cause lesions in normal people, such as cancer. So Lychee doesn't want to be the first hero to get cancer. This honor should be left to Deadpool Wade. The grenade flew a distance of 50 meters and exploded above the heads of the vampires rushing towards the main gate. 5 grenades exploded at the same time, and the dazzling purple light form was like a miniature sun. But the vampires under this purple sun felt like they had entered hell. Just like Dante described in the Divine Comedy, "From me, it is the way to enter the city of misery. From me, it is the way to enter eternal pain. From me, it is the way to enter the crowd of eternal suffering." Under the purple light, the vampires will fall into hell forever and never be reborn. Ultraviolet grenade. Humans have declared war on us. A vampire screamed in fear. Bang! A mithril bullet greeted his scream. Lychee, holding a Browning 9mm high-powered pistol, was shooting at the fish that had escaped the net. The silver-white mithril bullet cut through the air, creating a sonic boom, and then quickly drilled into the heads of those vampires. With the residual heat from the gunpowder explosion, it gave the vampires the most deadly kiss. Lychee, who came prepared, was purifying the vampires in this vampire manner. "Can people sleep well tonight?" Lunka, who was preparing to go to bed in the bedroom, heard the noise outside and roared angrily. "Mr. Lunka, someone attacked the villa. And used ultraviolet bombs. It looks like a premeditated attack, sir." One of Lanka's personal bodyguards ignored the etiquette and pushed open the bedroom door and rushed in. "Humans may have declared war on us. Yes, for some people, the all-out war against vampires began tonight." The book club strongly invites people to post comments. 539,763,655. If you like this book, please bookmark and recommend it. Your support is the author's greatest motivation. Chapter 78. The Manor at Night. Impossible. Calm down. Humans can't go to war with us without warning. Compared to the somewhat panicked servants, Lunka was calmer. He was an old man who had survived the last war between vampires and humans. He understood the disunity within the human government. In addition, the vampire empire itself had been trying to seduce humans, so it was unlikely that humans would attack without any news. "Go find out who is attacking here. Take out the combat uniforms and equipment. I want to see who is so bold," Lunka ordered calmly. The servants who received the order immediately left the room and began to let the other vampires in the villa wear defensive equipment according to Lanka's instructions, including combat uniforms with UV radiation protection and certain bulletproof capabilities, and individual heavy firepower including assault rifles and heavy machine guns. The chaos created by Lychee in the front has made the vampires in the entire villa feel like they are facing a great enemy, and Peter, who was preparing to sneak in at the back door, seized the opportunity to sneak into the villa. However, this villa is very large and has many rooms, so it will take some time to find the owner of the villa, Lunka. Lychee didn't have time to care about Peter's situation now, because it was obvious that the vampires here began to pay more attention to him. The vampires suffered heavy losses after being caught off guard by Lychee. At least a dozen vampires were purified by Lychee and went to see God before they figured out what was going on. However, the remaining vampires were all wearing wartime equipment under Lanka's arrangement, which made it difficult to deal with them. Lychee threw the remaining UV grenade at the vampires who rushed out. The strong UV radiation was directly blocked by the vampires' radiation protection suits. This time the UV grenade did not have any effect. However, Lychee had expected this to happen. With the development of technology, the offense and defense between the spear and the shield have been in an alternating state. If there is a way to attack, there will be a way to crack it. However, in addition to the UV grenade, Lychee also took a few normal fragmentation grenades from Frank's equipment warehouse before setting off. Anyway, the combat belt has a volume of 0.5 cubic meters, so it is no problem to hold these things. Normal fragmentation grenades can hardly kill vampires. Fragmentation injuries that are fatal to normal people are completely meaningless to vampires. After all, they are creatures whose intestines can flow out of their stomachs and can be stuffed back to continue fighting. However, the shock wave formed by the explosion will still cause some interference to vampires. Taking advantage of the opportunity when the vampires rushing out of the villa have not yet stood firm, Lychee threw 4 fragmentation grenades. The grenades exploded directly at the gate of the villa. The power of 4 grenades exploding together should not be underestimated. The shock wave directly overturned a group of vampires. However, the damage caused was not great. This is the kind of chaos that Li Ji wanted. He did not expect ordinary grenades to be successful. The vampires that came out now are all holding assault rifles and submachine guns. The firepower intensity is incomparable to those bodyguards holding pistols. If they really stand firm in the formation and organize a tight firepower network, then Li Ji will have no choice but to escape. The more battles he experiences, the faster Li Ji grows. Especially in the battles after partnering with Peter and Frank, through the battles between the two of them, Li Ji has been making up for his shortcomings. Learn from their advantages in the battle between the two. Never underestimate anyone. This is the bloody lesson Li Ji learned in the workplace in his previous life. And this experience is universal everywhere. Only by keeping improving and learning can you ensure that you can always be strong until you can protect yourself and the people you care about. Li Ji took advantage of the moment when the vampire's formation was scattered and pulled out 2 mithril long knives. Against vampires, his steel knife was obviously useless. The great Sun Tathagata said that it could suppress evil creatures, but it required its own palm method. Li Ji didn't want to fight the vampires head-on with his palm. The distance from Li Ji's position to the main entrance of the villa was only about 80 meters. In just 2 seconds, Li Ji had already killed into the crowd of vampires. At this time, the vampires had not yet recovered from the explosion. Li Ji's long knife had already slashed at their necks. The 2 leading vampires returned to the embrace of their ancestor god Dracula early. The mithril long blade infused with internal force was extremely sharp, like a hot knife cutting butter, and it chopped off the heads of the 2 vampires without any hindrance. The moment the mithril long blade touched the vampire's skin gave off a smell similar to barbecue. Because vampires are extremely allergic to mithril, just a slight contact will burn their skin. The blood spurting out of the necks of the 2 vampires whose heads were chopped off was like 2 human-shaped fountains. The intense exercise and the stimulation of the battle just now made their blood pressure in their bodies extremely high. After the aorta was cut open, the high-pressure blood gushed out from the carotid artery as if it had found a breakthrough. The blood splashed in the air wantonly, and the white marble floor and walls were stained with the dirty blood of the vampire. However, this blood carnival did not last too long. The spine of the vampire destroyed by the mithril long blade was like being infected by a crazy virus. First, the charred marks began to appear from the cut, and then continued to extend downwards, all the way to the entire spine. Then it began to spread outward from the central nervous system of the spine, extending to every peripheral nerve in the vampire's body. Like a burning charcoal, the vampire's body exuded a strange red light from the inside out. When the light reached its peak, it returned to calm, as if it was a burnt charcoal, and turned directly into a ball of flying ash under the blowing of the night wind. And the 2 heads thrown high also turned into dust between heaven and earth in the same way. Li Ji would not spend time appreciating the death of vampires, no matter how gorgeous their death methods were. In Li Ji's opinion, the best thing is to purify all these things into a pile of ashes. The vampire's radiation protection suit is equipped with a helmet mask, which can protect them from ultraviolet radiation in all directions. Moreover, this kind of fabric has a certain bulletproof and puncture-proof function because of its excellent toughness. But there is nothing perfect in this world. While increasing defense, this kind of clothing also seriously hinders the flexibility of the body due to the thick fabric. In combat, the flexibility of the body is even more important than the ability to protect. Therefore, Li Ji and Peter never wear bulletproof vests, even though Frank's warehouse has a lot of high-performance bulletproof clothing. The vampires wearing radiation-proof clothing are seriously restricted in their movements. Li Ji, who gave up the ultraviolet attack method, launched the simplest and most direct hand-to-hand combat. When the enemy is 50 meters away from you, a rifle is an efficient killing weapon. When the enemy is only 10 meters away from you, you will want a more flexible pistol or submachine gun. When the enemy is less than 1 meter away from you, God bless him, to add a bayonet to your rifle. Otherwise you will find that it is not as good as a big stick. Close combat is Li Ji's forte. He has used this method many times to kill enemies holding assault rifles. In the crowd of vampires, Li Ji showed his swordsmanship to his heart's content. As he said to Frank, his hair is good and he can easily see the head of the vampire. The cold blade of the mithril long knife flashed, leaving only a pool of bright red blood and a pile of burnt ashes. Da da da, rapid gunshots rang out. Li Ji dodged the bullet attack in a somewhat embarrassed manner. The three strong vampires in the villa actually held the Browning M2 heavy machine gun and fired directly at Li Ji. The strength of vampires is obviously much higher than that of ordinary people. The M2 heavy machine gun that fires .50 caliber bullets weighs nearly 40 kilograms without a tripod. Counting the heavy machine gun bullets they carry on their backs, the weight is at least more than 60 kilograms. In addition to the terrible recoil of the Browning M2, the three vampires actually pulled the trigger directly with their bodies and endured this recoil. Although Li Ji can do this now in terms of strength, he doesn't want to try it. Fortunately, because of the huge recoil of the heavy machine gun, the first shot fired by the three vampires had obvious upward jump. Although the vampires quickly corrected it with brute force, the first round of firing was not so accurate. Because of this, Li Ji narrowly avoided the heavy firepower of the M2. The firepower of the M2 heavy machine gun is not enough for even the perfect level of the Vajra indestructible body divine art, let alone the master level. The first generation of Mk1 armor made by Tony would be beaten back again and again. However, Li Ji is no longer the novice a few months ago, and his means of dealing with the enemy have obviously increased. Li Ji directly pointed his left hand in the correct direction to prepare for the second round of firing at Li Ji. A shock wave was emitted from the palm of Li Ji's hand. The high-frequency shotgun has been used 8 times since the last exchange, and now it can be used 12 times without changing the battery. Li Ji is not the kind of person who feels sorry for using the equipment after exchanging it. The original purpose of these props is to use them at this moment. The high-frequency shotgun has 2 attack modes. One is high-frequency shock, which is very useful for disintegrating pure energy attacks. And the shock wave attack is the first time Li Ji has used it. But the effect of using it was very good. The powerful shock wave caused a slight distortion in the air along the way. The shock wave hit 3 vampires holding heavy machine guns with sufficient force, and the 3 were directly knocked out more than 10 meters. The heavy machine guns in their hands were also knocked out of their hands. Li Ji would not let them have the opportunity to reorganize the firepower network. He rushed forward along the route of the shock wave and killed the 3 vampires. The moon hung high in the sky above New York City. The night was already deep, but the show had just begun. If you like this book, please collect and recommend it. Your support is the author's greatest motivation. Chapter 79, The Night Walker is different now. Spider-Man, how's it going? Have you found that old guy? Li Ji has already cleared out the vampires at the gate of the villa. Now I have time to contact Peter by radio to see what's going on there. Oh, I think it's almost time. Peter said hesitantly. This villa is a bit big. I guess there are more than 100 rooms. I need some time to find that guy. Well, it seems that Peter may not be able to find Lunka in a short time. Li Ji could only shake his head. Anyway, the vampires outside the villa have been cleared out, so he is not going to let go of the ones inside. Putting away a mithril long knife, Li Ji took out a pistol loaded with mithril bullets. Now Li Ji entered the villa with a mithril long knife in his left hand and a pistol in his right hand to start the sweep. Master Lunka. All the more than 20 bodyguards we arranged outside have been killed. Lanka's servant rushed into his bedroom again and brought him very bad news. How many people are there on the other side? Lanka's face couldn't help twitching. It seemed that the other side was very powerful, which reminded him of someone. There is only one now. The servant replied in fear. Could it be Blade? Lunka remembered this famous vampire hunter. More than a week ago, Blade had just bloodbathed a vampire villa in Buffalo. More than 60 vampires who came to the villa for a party were all killed. This caused a great shock to the nearby vampires, and also made the reputation of the Daywalker grow day by day. No, master, it's not a Daywalker. From the dress, it's not Blade. The servant also knew the legend of the Daywalker, so he could tell the difference between Li Ji and Blade from the equipment they wore. The person who came was wearing a gray hoodie. The servant described to Lunka. He was dressed more like the legendary Nightwalker in New York City now. Nightwalker? Why did this guy come to trouble me? Lunka didn't know that Li Ji had already started a war against vampires. Since the warehouse by the Hudson River destroyed the food prepared by the vampires for the carnival, Li Ji has been standing on the opposite side of the vampires. Master Lunka, the legend of the Nightwalker has always said that he is a hero who fights criminals in the dark. The servant told Lunka some of the information he learned from the internet. Hero? It turns out that he is another ignorant and fearless boy. Lanka has seen many people who like to be heroes in his life. Basically, these people have no good end. They often end up dying on the streets. Send more people to the underground factory and defend that place. This is the most important part for us. Don't let him know about the factory. Lanka began to untie his nightgown and came to his closet and ordered. The servant left the room according to his instructions. Lanka took off his nightgown and opened the side door of his closet. There is a secret compartment here. After Lanka entered the password to verify the iris, a door hidden behind the closet was opened. This is where Lanka's equipment is stored. As an old vampire who has fought bloody battles, he will always hide a gun under his pillow. After Li Ji entered the villa, he was surprised to find that there seemed to be no one in the villa. There were clearly intruders, but no other vampires came to stop them. Did they all get killed by him at the front door? Li Ji thought to himself that it shouldn't be possible. This manor is so big that it is impossible to guard it with only the 20 or so guards at the door. Li Ji carefully explored the room along the wall. Just as Li Ji thought, there were other vampires in the room, and they were elite killers that Lanka had spent a lot of effort to train. In addition to their super healing ability and speed and strength far beyond ordinary people, vampires have another special ability. Just like the animal representing vampires, bats, vampires have super hearing. And this super hearing requires talent. Some vampires just have better hearing, but some vampires can be like real bats. Through the feedback of sound waves, a real image is produced in the mind. And the vampire killers under Lanka are specially selected and trained. What they are best at is fighting in the dark and smoke. Just as Li Ji was walking through the long and narrow corridor inside the villa, two vampires holding submachine guns appeared at the end of the corridor. Li Ji, who was on full alert, had already spotted them the moment they appeared, and directly raised his hand to shoot them on their way with 2 shots. In such close-range shooting, aiming is not relied on at all, only on the feel of the hand. Because if you aim, you will definitely not be able to react in time. In the narrow space indoors, hand-to-hand combat, pistols and submachine guns are the most effective. If you are blocked in the corridor and shot with a burst of bullets from a submachine gun, your body will definitely become a colander. Li Ji hurriedly left the corridor and came to what looked like the restaurant of the villa. Suddenly, all the lights in the villa went out, and Li Ji, who was in the middle of the villa restaurant, felt his eyes go dark in an instant. He immediately knew that something was wrong. There must be an ambush. He rolled and fled from the spot. As expected, dense bullets bit the direction where Li Ji dodged and kept chasing. Not being able to see in the dark was a problem for Li Ji. Those vampire killers can rely on the rebound of sound waves to determine the location of the enemy in the dark. However, the technology in this world is developing so fast that some small props can often help Li Ji get out of his predicament. Li Ji, who followed Frank in training, also learned from Frank to become a human arsenal. In particular, there is a 0.5 cubic meter space in the combat belt, which can hold a lot of things. Li Ji may not bring a lot of munitions, but he brought a lot of practical and non-occupied small props. While Li Ji was evading the shooting of bullets, he took out a burning stick directly from the combat belt and pulled the fuse. The orange-red light instantly illuminated the room, and the figures of more than a dozen vampires holding MP5 submachine guns were also reflected. Li Ji quickly found a pillar that served as a beam of the house and hid himself behind it. Then he threw 2 fragmentation grenades at the vampires. This kind of improvisation during the battle is the most important gain for Li Ji in this period of time. However, as the elite trained by Lanka, the level of this group of vampires is completely different from the vampires outside. Facing the 2 flying grenades, no one actually lay down or dodged. Instead, a vampire stepped forward and kicked twice in the air. He actually kicked the unexploded grenades directly out of the window as if they were 2 small balls. Oh, these guys are really strong. Li Ji, who was hiding behind the pillar, exclaimed in surprise. It is obviously childish to compete with the opponent's firepower now. Li Ji only brought a pistol. Even if he took an assault rifle, he couldn't beat the opponent's more than 10 MP5s. Okay, it might hurt a little. Li Ji took a deep breath, put away the pistol, and pulled out 2 mithril long swords again, ready to face the attack of bullets directly. Yes, it sounds stupid, but don't forget that Li Ji exchanged for the mastery level of Vajra Indestructible Body Divine Art. This allows him to completely defend against attacks with kinetic energy less than 700 joules. Li Ji has tried it many times before, and at most there is a slight pain, but bullets less than 700 joules cannot penetrate his skin at all. The muzzle energy of the MP5 submachine gun is only 650 joules, and the muzzle energy of most submachine guns is less than 700 joules. So Li Ji was confident that he could withstand the attack and directly engage in a close combat. Taking the enemy by surprise is also an important tactic in combat. The vampires never expected that Li Ji would come out from behind the pillar. More than 10 MP5s focused their fire on Li Ji. It was just as Li Ji expected. It was just a little painful, but these MP5s were unable to break his defense. This defense power greatly exceeded the expectations of the vampires. The room was not big to begin with, and Li Ji accelerated in just a breath and broke into the interior of the vampire. The quick-reacting vampires took out the short knives and daggers they carried with them and prepared to fight Li Ji in close combat. But they were a bit slower in reaction. Li Ji's hardline assault caught the vampires off guard. The mithril longsword reflected the orange-red light of the burning stick, and when it was swung, it was like two death blades with hellfire. A vampire picked up his MP5 submachine gun and tried to block the longsword. However, the mithril longsword infused with internal force split the vampire in half with his gun. The knife flashed, blood splattered, heads rolled, and ashes covered the ground. At the moment when the burning stick burned out, all the vampires burned out their last lives just like the extinguished burning stick. A group of vampires that Lunka had spent a lot of effort to train were also killed by Li Ji. If he knew, he would definitely feel sad. But Li Ji didn't have time to care whether Lunka felt sad or not. Peter's urgent voice was coming from the radio headset. "Nightwalker, come to me quickly. I have a great discovery here. God, these guys are damned. Oh, it seems that not only is there a great discovery, but there is also a big trouble. Thanks to the book friend, Bookworm for the reward. If you like this book, please collect and recommend it. Your support is the author's greatest motivation." Chapter 80 Rage. From Peter's tone, it seemed that he had discovered something incredible. Li Ji asked Peter where he was now, and immediately rushed in Peter's direction. Peter had indeed discovered something incredible. Peter had sneaked into the villa before, and had been wandering around for a long time without finding the target person, Lunka. Because the house was too big, he was a little lost, but because Li Ji attracted enough firepower on the front, the vampires inside the villa did not find Peter wandering around in the room. Unlike the vampires who rushed to the main gate for support, a team of vampires ran towards the depths of the villa with guns and live ammunition. This group of vampires attracted Peter's attention, although Peter did not know that there is a saying in China, "Things that are abnormal must be demons." But with Peter's IQ, even if he thinks with his big toe, he knows that there is something wrong with this group of vampires. Following the vampires all the way, Peter came to the secret place of this villa. In addition to the vast ground buildings, there is also a huge underground space hidden in this huge manor villa. In a cleaning room on the first floor of the villa, there is a hidden elevator to the underground space. Using biostatic electricity, Peter could easily attach to various parts of the villa wall, allowing him to successfully avoid the detection of vampires. When the last vampire entered the elevator, Peter directly opened the elevator gate and slid into the bottom floor of the elevator shaft using spider silk. After a rough estimate, Peter estimated that he had descended at least 20 meters. This depth is really not shallow, which made Peter even more curious about what is inside. Peter flipped out of the elevator shaft and walked through an aisle. A huge basement appeared in front of Peter. The empty and huge basement is at least more than 3,000 square meters in size. 30 huge and towering pillars support the top of the entire space. Nearly 100 incandescent lamps of hundreds of watts illuminate the entire basement as bright as day. The basement is at least 10 meters high, and the vampires use simple iron ladders and iron bars to divide the entire space into two parts, upper and lower. There are at least more than 70 vampires patrolling this vast basement. Because the wealth here is far higher than the buildings and properties that can be seen on the ground for Lunka. Have you ever seen the dwarf pine trees used for Christmas decorations planted on the ground? In order to save land, forest farms usually plant these disposable saplings densely so that they can bring them more abundant profits at Christmas. The saplings are stacked layer by layer, branches next to branches, pine needles stacked on pine needles. Even the roots grow together. If people with trypophobia look at them, their scalps will tingle. Peter's scalp is tingling now, but it's not because of trypophobia. It's because the vampires planted not Christmas trees underground, but living people one by one. Yes, one by one, I didn't use the wrong adjective. Thousands of densely packed people were tied up in glass chambers one after another. The glass chambers were upright, supported by 3 brackets underground, just like Christmas trees at Christmas. Most of the tied people stared blankly ahead, and their pupils did not focus in any direction. A drainage tube was inserted into the left-hand meridian of the human body. Bright red blood flowed into a collection box outside the glass chamber along the drainage tube. Whenever the collection box collects 400 cc of blood, the drainage tube will stop collecting blood. Another feeding tube that is inserted directly from the human mouth into their stomach will start to inject something similar to baby vomit into these living tree people. Perhaps this is a high-energy and easy-to-digest food that helps these living tree people to produce more blood. There is also a life detection device connected to the glass chamber. Whenever a tree person's heart stops beating, the drainage tube will open to the maximum suction force and suck out every drop of blood in his body. You can see that an adult man is like a deflated balloon, shrinking rapidly. Every blood vessel becomes shriveled due to the loss of blood pressure. The body begins to turn pale rapidly due to blood loss, as if white paint was directly painted on the body. When the last drop of blood is drawn out, the tree person has lost all value. An automatic machine will replace the tree person who has lost his use. Then another fresh tree person with plenty of blood will be replaced in the glass chamber to continue working. And this is only the situation on the first floor, and the tree people on the second floor seem to be much less than the first floor. The tree people here are all women and children. Perhaps for vampires, food is also divided into different levels. Male blood is the lowest level of food, while female and child blood is a higher level. Beautiful virgin blood and tender children's blood are the most delicious. All the areas of the entire underground space have been effectively utilized. This is a factory. A factory that produces plasma. It is obvious that the only buyers of this plasma are vampires. Unlike the refrigerated plasma provided by human blood banks, here you can enjoy the freshest and warmest blood as long as you have money. As long as you are in the greater New York area, one phone call will be free shipping throughout the city, and a large amount of blood needed for the party is also provided. There are many flavors, including children's tender blood, beautiful women's sweet blood, and pregnant women's blood full of vitality. As long as you pay, Lanka Blood Company can meet all your needs. This is Lanka's advertisement within the vampire empire, and it is also his biggest business. The price of a bag of 100 cc blood ranges from a minimum of $50 to a maximum of $600. This blood factory produces millions of dollars of wealth for Lanka every day. This is a real factory of blood and tears. Every dollar here carries the blood of innocent people. With this wealth, Lanka feeds a large group of people. In addition to the more than 100 men in the villa, there are hundreds of people scattered all over North and South America, looking for more and better sources of blood for him. Oh my God. Peter was completely stunned by the terrible scene in front of him. This is a direct link to the city of misery. This is a direct link to endless suffering. This is a direct link to fallen beings. Every drop of blood here is stained, and every soul here cannot rest. May someone be able to clear the fog. May someone be able to dispel the darkness. May the holy fire from heaven descend here and burn all the ugliness and filth here. Pray that the hero will make the most severe judgment on the evildoers in the name of justice, and pray that the hero will bravely summon the holy light to redeem the stained soul. A kind of anger from the depths of his soul burned Peter Parker, and his facial features were twisted and hideous under the spider mask. Every blood vessel in his body began to expand because the blood was stimulated by adrenaline to speed up the flow. Every muscle in his body began to swell due to the accelerated oxygen supply of blood and the anger that was difficult to release. Peter Parker pulled out a mithril dagger at his waist, which Luigi asked him to wear before the action. Spider-Man was like an angry devil at this moment, no longer the friendly good neighbor, no longer the happy city hero. Spider-Man's anger needs someone to bear, and these vampires are the best vent. When Luigi came to this underground space according to Peter's guidance, he was stunned by the tragic scene when he just walked out of the elevator shaft. As if swept by a level 12 typhoon, several steel bars were inserted into the wall in a mess, and vampires pierced by steel bars were hanging on the steel bars. They were not dead yet, but they were tied tightly by Peter with spider silk, struggling in vain. Luigi walked a short 20 meters, and every step he took could see the blood splashed on the ground and the dust after the vampires burned out. Peter was no longer the little spider who had just gained the ability and could not even resist Luigi's attack. Peter has not yet reached the peak of Spider-Man, but his strength has exceeded 1 ton. Being punched by him is like being hit head-on by a slow-moving car. There are many cracks on the hard concrete floor, and those cracks are soaked with blood. Luigi believes that this is not Peter's, but those unlucky vampires. Because his good friend Peter Parker is holding a vampire's ankle at the entrance of this aisle. And a mithril dagger is completely twisted and thrown on the ground. A strong man weighing nearly 90 kilograms is like a rag doll in Peter's hand. He grabs the vampire's ankle and keeps slapping him against the wall in concrete. Blood and minced meat mixed with some bone debris splashed in the air. This furious image is completely different from the Peter that Luigi is familiar with in the past. Enough. Spider-Man. Luigi shouted at Peter. But Peter ignored Luigi's shouting. I said enough. Did you hear me? Spider-Man. Luigi moved closer and continued to shout. Peter responded by hitting Luigi harder. Stop. Luigi said as he took out his pistol and shot the vampire in Peter's hand. The vampire turned into dust. Spider-Man, who had lost his tool to vent his anger, attacked Luigi directly. Peter was now confused by the killing and lost his mind. Stop, stop, stop. I'm Brother Nightcrawler. Spider-Man, wake up for me. Luigi dodged Peter's attack in a panic while trying to wake him up. But Peter showed no sign of stopping. Okay, I'm sorry, man. Luigi could only say sorry to Peter first, and then he threw his hand and shot a spider silk from his spider silk launcher to tie Peter up. Fearing that Peter would be too strong to break free, Luigi tied him up a few more times. Luigi didn't care too much and took off Peter's hood directly. Now Peter's eyes were red and his face was twisted with anger. Oh God, man, wake up, it's me. I'm Nightcrawler. Luigi exclaimed when he saw Peter's appearance. But Peter didn't seem to recognize him. Luigi took off his hood and revealed his real face. Peter, it's me, Jason, your best friend. Wake up, buddy. Luigi said and patted Peter's cheek a few times. He hoped that this would help him recover faster. Peter's eyes seemed to be clearer and whispered. Jason. Yes, it's me, buddy. Luigi suddenly thought of his great son Taffagata seal, which seemed to have the effect of suppressing evil. He wondered if Peter's current situation could be considered as being possessed by evil. Luigi tried to directly transfer a trace of the internal energy of the great son Taffagata seal into Peter's body. It seemed that the internal energy was still somewhat useful. Peter's eyes seemed to recover a lot quickly. Are you feeling better, Peter? Do you recognize who I am? Luigi looked at Peter and saw that he seemed to have recovered, and loosened the hand that input the internal energy. Jason? Are you Jason? Peter said in confusion. Are you Nightwalker, or Jason? Yes, it looks like you're well now, I can let you out. Luigi cut the spider silk with a knife. After Peter got out of the trap, he looked at Luigi in disbelief. I didn't expect you to lie to me for so long. Did you know who I was from the beginning? And then you deliberately concealed your identity from me. Brother, I don't think it's time to talk about this now. Look at what you've done. What's wrong with you? Luigi still couldn't figure out what happened to Peter just now. Peter recalled what he had just done. Those vampires were still nailed to the wall by him and couldn't move, and blood kept dripping down. Peter's face looked a little bad, and he said in a dry tone. You'd better be prepared for everything you're going to see later. Peter said as he led Luigi to the exit of the corridor. If you like this book, please collect and recommend it. Your support is the author's greatest motivation. Chapter 81 Luigi's Decision. The vampires in the basement were either killed by Peter or nailed to the wall by him. The basement is now safe. Following Peter's steps, Luigi came to this vast underground space. What Peter had seen before, this time it was Luigi's turn to be shocked. Rows of neat glass chambers stood upright in the space of the basement. The people locked in the glass chambers had dull eyes, but no one died. They became tools for vampires to extract blood. Oh my God. Luigi couldn't help but cover half of his face with his palm, looking at the situation in front of him in disbelief. What's wrong with these people? Luigi walked quickly to a glass chamber and observed the situation of those people inside. Damn. How can this ghost thing stop? Luigi tried to stop a drainage tube from drawing blood from the tree man in the glass chamber, but didn't know how to stop it. This place is highly automated. I think there should be a central control computer to control the operation of all the equipment. Peter came to Luigi and said. Okay, let's find the central control computer first. Peter, do you know what's going on with these people? Luigi and Peter began to search in the basement. Their situation looks a bit like what was described in a book I read before. Peter recalled some of the knowledge he had learned and said. It's like a frontal lobe removal surgery, which was a surgery to treat mental illness back then. After the frontal lobe was removed, people would become like this. Can't speak, can't think, become a living dead. The only difference is that they can breathe. When he said this, Peter's face couldn't help but twitch. This is a very inhumane surgery, which was banned in the late 1970s. Peter finally said. At this time, they found a place that looked like an office, and inside was the central control computer responsible for managing the operation of the equipment. From what you said, it seems that the vampires are planning to keep these humans in captivity for a long time, and then draw blood regularly to provide a long-term and stable blood source. Li Ji already understood the vampires' intention. It seems that they treat humans as weed in the plantation and plan to harvest them all the time. Li Ji's tone also became very cold. He could now understand Peter's previous anger, which made the originally kind Peter so furious and attack these vampires like crazy. Okay, I'm stopping the blood drawing of these devices now. Peter quickly tapped the keyboard on the central control computer and stopped the operation of the equipment. Jason, what are you going to do? Peter asked. How do we deal with these people? Let's call me Nightcrawler while we hide our identities. Li Ji said, putting on his hood again. And I'll continue to call you Spider-Man. We don't want our loved ones to be in danger because of us. You're right, man. As he spoke, Peter also put on his spider mask. What should we do with these people? Let Frank deal with it. No, Spider-Man. Li Ji shook his head firmly after hearing Peter's question. The connection behind Frank must be with the government. Remember the warehouse incident last time? Thousands of people were detained in a warehouse, and the TV stations and the internet did not make any move on such a big thing. This shows that someone is deliberately concealing the truth of the incident. Look at what these vampires are doing now. Their attacks on humans are far from being the occasional low-probability events we imagined. It seems that the so-called bullshit armistice agreement only restricts the human government itself, and the vampires are still doing what they should do, but their methods have become more obscure. We don't know how many such blood farms there are in New York, let alone how many such places there are in the United States or even the world. But I know that many innocent people must have been killed, just like these people, who became tools for vampires to make blood in a life worse than death. We can't count on the organization that Frank contacted. Peter called the TV station directly. Li Ji made his final decision. What? Brother, are you kidding? You want the TV station to directly intervene and report this matter? Peter looked at Li Ji in surprise. Yes, politicians and officials have their own bodyguards and a ceasefire agreement, so vampires won't attack them. These people are high above and don't care about the lives of ordinary people. And they will make some sacrifices they think are necessary for the so-called overall situation, such as the lives of ordinary people. Anyway, it's not their own lives that are sacrificed, so they don't care. Li Ji's tone was cold and firm. Since they like to cover up the truth and pretend to be peaceful, let's uncover the darkest and ugliest side of this world. The people have the right to know what they are facing, and humans must be prepared. Vampires will not let them go because of the ignorance and kindness of civilians. Let more people know the truth and let everyone unite. Li Ji's eyes burned with a blazing fire. Lions and zebras will never live in peace. Since war is bound to break out, let us give the first warning and let everyone be prepared. Well said, brother. I think we should do this. The vampire incident must be exposed, and we can't let those shameless officials cover up the truth. Peter slapped Li Ji's shoulder and agreed with Li Ji's words. Then you go use the phone in this villa to contact the TV station and tell them there's big news here. Li Ji said to Peter, while taking out his mobile phone from his combat belt. What are you going to do? Peter asked. Record the situation here. If the TV station doesn't report it, I'll post it online directly. Li Ji said as he turned on the recording function of his mobile phone. While Peter was using the phone in the villa to notify the TV station, and Li Ji was using his mobile phone to record the underground factory. The original owner of the villa, Lunka, had already fled. Lunka, who was originally wearing a full set of combat equipment made by the Hammer Arms Company, was ready to help. But his men retreated too quickly. Lunka was a man who could judge the situation and survive for so many years, and he also survived the last battle between humans and ghosts. He knew very well that he should retreat when he should, and the enemy seemed to be obviously stronger than his side. It was obviously stupid to resist the other side at this time. At most, he would lose this villa and factory, but as long as he was alive, any money and power could be gathered again. Night Walker. You're dead. Lunka looked back at his villa and said viciously. He was ready. Next time he would gather enough people to strangle the Night Walker. But he didn't know that this time the Night Walker was going to poke a hole in the sky. If you like this book, please collect and recommend it. Your support is the author's greatest motivation. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82 Birds of a Feather. At 9 o'clock in the evening of September 15th, in Washington, D.C., there was a hazy drizzle in the sky. This is not common in the dry autumn. The street lamps on the street emitted orange-yellow lights, which looked hazy in the drizzle. Arlington is an important district in Washington, D.C., where many government office buildings, including the Pentagon, are concentrated. A Rolls-Royce Phantom was parked in front of a 6-story European-style building in Arlington. An elderly man wearing a double-breasted striped suit and a small hat walked out of the car. He had a pair of gray-brown eyes and held a tin cane in his hand. There was an exquisite dragon decoration on the handle of the cane. He was extraordinary and elegant. When people saw him, they couldn't help but think of some royal nobles in Europe who had received strict dogmas. The only thing that made him look a little unmannerly was the anxious expression that occasionally flashed across his face. The man got out of the car and walked quickly into the building, took the elevator to the 6th floor of the building, opened the door and walked into the largest office on the 6th floor. "You're late, Go Xianyu." There were already more than a dozen other people sitting in the office, and some people who looked like bodyguards were standing around. The first person to speak was a black man with silver hair and a solemn face. "We always show up on time, never early, and never delay." Go Xianyu's words were very stiff, but his tone was very polite. It seemed that he was saying something common sense, and also reminded everyone present that he was not late, but just arrived at the right time. "We are not vampires, and we don't understand your tricks." The silver-haired black man snorted in an ambiguous way, and then said, "Okay, Juno, we are here to solve the problem and negotiate. Don't get angry and quarrel at the beginning." A middle-aged bald man with gold-rimmed glasses stood up to smooth things over. "Gentlemen, let's start our agenda. Juno, you can go and quarrel with Go Xianyu alone later." Sitting at the top of the conference table, a blond middle-aged white man interrupted the black man who was about to say something. "Okay, Mr. Chairman." The black man named Juno said, and stared at Go Xianyu fiercely. As the black man Juno said before, Go Xianyu is a vampire. Except for Go Xianyu, the rest of the people present are human. The meeting was organized by the president's office. The blond middle-aged man in the upper position is the White House contact and the convener of this meeting. He also represents the president with full authority and will report the meeting information to the president as soon as possible. Also attending the meeting was the leader of the Vampire Special Event Handling Department, Mr. Lynch, a ghost who secretly wants to become a vampire. He is the bald man with the gold-rimmed glasses who just went out to make peace. At the same time, the National Security Council also held a meeting in parallel. The person attending the meeting was the black old man Juno, who just mocked Go Xianyu as soon as he opened his mouth. Frank's old friend, the one-eyed Nick Fury, the director of SHIELD, also attended the meeting. In addition, Go Xianyu, the chief elder of the North and South American Vampire Elders Council. This is the highest-level vampire joint meeting in the United States and even in North and South America. The topic was simple, about a vampire farm incident. The president doesn't want this incident to have too much impact, which will cause ordinary people to panic and be detrimental to social stability. The first person to speak was the White House contact, the blond man. He spoke in a high-sounding manner, saying things that he didn't even believe. If you really want to understand what he said, it's best to think that the president doesn't want the vampire incident to affect his voter support rate. Lynch spoke after the blond man. "We have contacted the news media to delete all the vampire incidents in the news. And when we borrowed the intelligence, all the people in the basement had been moved away, and the reporters didn't take any photos. This will only turn into an ordinary missing case. The sudden disappearance of Mr. Lunka, a wealthy man in New York, is very eye-catching, but it won't have any impact on society. As a vampire's vanguard, Lynch is already familiar with handling these things." "Huh, then what? Did the people in your department just finish their work?" What about those humans who were planted like plants? Where did they go? Juno laughed sarcastically. Of course we have properly resettled those people. Mr. Lynch said in an unhappy tone. You mean by properly resettling them, sending them all to island? Juno took a disk of documents from Nick Fury and threw it on the conference table. Many photos and documents were spread out on the table, and these photos made Lynch look very embarrassed. Island is an independent island on the east coast. It was used to detain serious criminals before it was abandoned. Only a few people were left on the island to do maintenance and keep the island's navigation lighthouse running. The number of people rescued from the vampire farm this time is 8,500, including many women and children. These people have had their frontal lobes removed. In simple terms, they have become living dead, or vegetative people. These people must be resettled by the government, and this task is naturally handed over to the vampire-related departments. Mr. Lynch's solution is also very direct. Transfer everyone to island, make use of the prison on the island, and then give these vegetative people some fixed nutrients so that they don't die immediately. As for what will happen to the people inside after the limelight, only God knows. It seems that this matter was exposed by S.H.I.E.L.D., and the information was thrown directly on the table, which made Lynch very embarrassed. This is just a temporary solution. We need time to deal with these things slowly. The first goal now is to prevent the news media from knowing these things. As an excellent politician, lying with open eyes is a necessary skill. Lynch said righteously, as if everything he did was for the consideration of the government and the country. I hope so. I will keep an eye on it. Nick Fury, who had been silent all the time, rarely spoke, and his cold tone made Lynch very uncomfortable. Okay, the president said that he knew Mr. Lynch's decision and thought that he handled it correctly. Now the first problem is to reduce the impact. The blonde man once again interrupted the situation that was about to quarrel. Now our topic is, Mr. Goshianu. You and your Elder Council, and the vampires under the Elder Council did not abide by the armistice agreement. Your behavior is a declaration of war on us. No, sir, I think you are wrong. The blood race is law-abiding. We have abided by the armistice agreement very well. Goshianu smiled and denied the blonde man's accusation against him. At that time, the Vampire Empire and the 28 allies of the Human Alliance signed an armistice agreement. Over the years, we have never thought of provoking a war. We have never attacked the people of the armistice countries. Goshianu held his cane and paced in the office. I didn't know about the blood farm in New York, but later Lunka confessed to me that none of the humans he captured were Americans or citizens of the Allied countries at that time. The Blood Clan has no intention of provoking the powerful American government, and we will never attack American civilians. Goshianu said, standing at one end of the conference table. But you provoked humans, and you broke your promise not to attack humans. Juno couldn't stand Goshianu's unrepentant attitude. Because my people are hungry. They need food. What will happen if a large number of hungry vampires appear on the streets of the United States? We need a source of food. Goshianu said tit for tat. We provided you with food. The plasma stock in the human blood bank is already below the warning line. How many emergency patients died on the operating table because they could not get blood transfusions? And those life-saving plasmas were eaten by you and your people as food. At this point, Juno was already furious. Sir, I must remind you that every pack of plasma taken out of the blood bank by the Vampire Empire was paid with real money. Goshianu said without showing any weakness. The government calls on people to go to the streets to donate blood for free. Every holiday, there will be a line of people donating blood for free in front of the blood donation vehicle. The government has not paid a penny to its taxpayers, and we have to pay $200 for every 100cc pack of plasma we take from the government's blood bank. Goshianu had already inadvertently exposed his fangs when he spoke. The vampires exchanged their food on the principle of equal exchange. This is not provided by you for free. If the patient dies due to lack of blood, it is not because of our appetite, but because of your greed for money. Goshianu's words made the meeting room silent. This was a real and embarrassing problem. The patient's lack of blood was not because the blood bank really had no blood. It was because the government sold most of the plasma to the Vampire Empire for profit. The government made a lot of money by calling on people to donate blood for free and then selling it to vampires at a high price. The only one who spoke now was Nick Fury. In the warehouse by the Hudson River, we found some of the Americans kidnapped by you. His only intact eyeball was staring at Goshianu. I think you are the famous director of SHIELD, Nick Fury. Nice to meet you. Go Cheyenne, you said with a smile, not caring about Nick's gaze. I don't quite understand what happened by the Hudson River. I said the vampire empire would not attack Americans. Did you find vampires by the Hudson River? Are you sure there's evidence that the vampires did it? Nick certainly couldn't find any. The 3 vampires who were handed over were purified into dust by Frank. Where was the evidence? And respected director, please don't forget. The vampires are the most honest taxpayers. Go Cheyenne, you suddenly talked about another topic. As far as I know, the entire vampire clan in North America, all industries and personal taxes, add up to nearly $200 billion in taxes to the US government every year. The US tax revenue is 3.3 trillion yuan a year, and we account for nearly 7% of the total US tax revenue. The whole conference room fell silent when he said this. This is something that everyone knows. Vampires have existed for too long, and they are deeply rooted in many industries. If they want to eradicate them all overnight, the entire United States will fall into turmoil. And don't talk about the large amount of money we pay to the US government every year to buy plasma. Go Cheyenne, you paused, and only then did he take off his hat. Director Nick, please allow me to remind you. Many of your shield's expenses cannot be paid by normal funds, and who do you think is paying for those obscure expenses? Go Cheyenne, you said with a sneer. As I said, the vampires will not be enemies with the United States, nor do they want to provoke the government. I am very sorry for this incident. The Empire will give compensation to the families of all the victims. And I promise that this will not happen again next time. Go Cheyenne, you said with a faint smile. How can you guarantee your oath? Can it cover the vampire's thirst for blood? Juno asked. The research on artificial plasma has made a breakthrough. I believe we will have a day of peaceful coexistence. Go Cheyenne's words made everyone in the conference room whisper. And to show sincerity, the vampire empire is willing to punish the culprit Lanka and let him bathe in the sun without protection. Go Cheyenne's trip was full of sincerity. The officials present did not really want to go to war with the vampires, except for Juno and Nick, who still stared at Go Cheyenne with vigilant eyes. It was already midnight when they walked out of the building. In the constant quarrels and compromises, the human government once again reached a peace agreement with the vampires. It was really ridiculous, but this was the true face of politicians. Juno, who was standing in the building, was watching Go Cheyenne's Rolls-Royce Phantom slowly drive away through the window. He asked Nick Fury, who was standing next to him. Do you believe him? I don't believe in any vampires. Nick's answer was concise and powerful. I don't believe it either, but the Security Council is not decided by me alone. Juno said somewhat unwillingly. There are always people who only see the immediate benefits and don't look at long-term plans. Nick, I need you to get all the people in SHIELD to take action. I have a bad feeling. Where is the Security Council? I will try my best to settle it for you and let them not hold you back. Did that bad feeling tell you from the girl? Nick Fury asked without any context. Juno smiled and didn't answer. In the Nightcrawler base, Li Ji and Peter looked through all the news and didn't see any connection with the New York blood farm. The most reported thing was that the New York tycoon Lanka disappeared. But Li Ji knew that this matter was not that simple, so he recorded the video. Useless Nightwalker. The government will have people delete your uploaded video soon. Frank already knew what happened to Li Ji and Peter in Lanka Manor. He knew very well that the government would find ways to cover up the matter. This was the government's virtue, and Frank had experienced it a long time ago. At least we should try, boss. Peter answered on behalf of Li Ji while uploading the video on the computer. It would be good if it could let more people know the truth of the matter. Li Ji stared at the screen. Although he had guessed the result long ago, he still couldn't help feeling disappointed. Never pin your hopes on politicians suddenly awakening their conscience. Thanks to the book Friends, Yeodong unknown number Daishiangui nickname is not a number Evil Eye Cat Corpse refuse illusion crazy Madanxi nickname is not a number Batista 01 Minshengaansh 0 and others for their rewards. Thank you very much for your support of this book. Go Shianyu and Blade 1 is like a retard. For a man who is hundreds of years old and a great elder, he is too retarded. The book slightly changes his IQ and behavior to make it more in line with his identity. The book friend group strongly recruits people to post comments. 539,763,655. If you like this book, please collect and recommend it. Your support is the author's greatest motivation. Chapter 83, No Guilt. Spider-Man remembered to hide the IP address and signal source when uploading the video. Frank knew that he couldn't persuade Lee G and the others, so he could only remind them. Don't worry, boss. I use 2 computers to process the signal together, and others can't trace us. Peter pointed to the laptop that Lee G bought at the beginning and said, Did you really see those things? Vampires harvest humans as crops. Hit Girl Mindy finished her homework for today and came to the side of Lee G and Peter. She lay directly on Peter's shoulder and asked, Yes, Mindy. But I think you'd better not watch these things. Peter said, covering Mindy's eyes with his palms to prevent her from watching the content of the video. Hate. Spider-Man, I've seen more cruel scenes than these. Mindy tried to pry Spider-Man's fingers apart, but the little girl was not a little bit inferior to Spider-Man in strength. Okay Mindy, let Spider-Man work first. Lee G went over and pressed Mindy's shoulders, and took her away from the computer desk. Frank, do you have any more mithril daggers? Lee G took Mindy to the equipment warehouse, where Damon and Frank were doing daily equipment maintenance. We have a few more. Is your knife broken? Frank said as he took a mithril dagger from a shelf and handed it to Lee G. It's not my knife that's broken, it's the one for Mindy. Lee G took the dagger and handed it directly to Hit Girl. Cool. So you agreed to let me participate in your operation? Mindy said excitedly after taking the mithril dagger. Nightwalker, I said Mindy can't participate in any dangerous operations. Her training here is already the biggest bottom line, otherwise I will. Frank was interrupted by Lee G before he finished speaking. You will send her away, right? Lee G shrugged and said. Mindy can't participate in the operation of hunting vampires. At this time, even Big Daddy stood up to object. This is not an ordinary gang organization. Mindy still lacks sufficient training and is not capable of dealing with them. Don't worry, I'm not asking Mindy to participate in the operation, but to give her something to protect herself. Lee G expressed his thoughts. I believe you have all seen the video I shot. The scale of the vampire attack is far greater than we imagined. This dagger is for Mindy to protect herself. And after nightfall, I personally suggest that Mindy stay here and don't go anywhere. If you want to go out, at least have an adult accompany you. Cute little girls are the favorite food of vampires. After Lee G finished speaking, Mindy's face drooped. Now she is becoming less and less free. Lee G and Peter uploaded the video on the website. This matter seemed to Frank and Damon to be a waste of effort. 2 young people who were ignorant of the world fantasized about changing the world, but Frank and Damon had long given up hope. The government of this world is darker than Lee G and Peter imagined. Politicians have reached an agreement with the vampire empire, and the government is trying its best to eliminate the influence of the blood farm. All videos related to this have been deleted, and several times the government almost traced Peter's signal source. Fortunately, he reacted quickly and unplugged the power before the government department had time to locate it. Strangely enough, all the videos on the website have been deleted, but the videos on the small website of Nightwalker Alliance are still preserved. However, because the Nightwalker Alliance website is not well known enough and is not a mainstream news media, this video is just regarded by many people as a fake hype video. However, as long as someone watches it, more or less people will believe it. Anyway, Lee G can only hold this attitude. He has done everything he can do, and the rest is not under his control. He is just an ordinary person with a little power, and he does not have the power to save the world. He can only try his best to protect his family and remind everyone, and he can't do much else. Jason, do you think anyone will believe our video? Peter asked Lee G while helping in his food truck. In the original summer vacation plan, Lee G expected to drive a food truck to travel to the East Coast cities. However, in the end, he was dragged down by various things and the travel plan could not be implemented. Moreover, there are many things to do after school starts, and the food truck has not been open for a long time. After school today, Lee G specially invited Peter to help take care of the food truck. Now that the two have revealed their identities, many things can be discussed openly. Ever since Peter went crazy in the basement last time, Lee G was afraid that Peter would plant the seeds of shadow in his heart. Although he had not studied psychology, Lee G also knew that there was something called intervention therapy. So he invited Peter to come to the food truck with him to help, and use other things to distract his attention. Don't think too much, Peter, we did what we should do. Some things are not within our control. We don't have that much power. Luigi was frying hamburgers, and Peter was helping him cut onions. Yes, if you can have more powerful power, maybe you can save more people. What did you say, Peter? Peter muttered in a low voice, and Luigi was busy cooking and didn't hear what he said clearly. Oh, nothing. I mean, these onions are really a bit irritating. Do you have to cut so many onions every day? Ah, Peter said, and wiped his eyes with his hands, but forgot that his hands were full of onion juice, which made his eyes even more irritating. Oh my God, you are such an idiot. Luigi cursed with a smile, and handed Peter a clean tissue to wipe his eyes. In the center of New Jersey, Deacon Fess, the owner of Zingui Real Estate, was standing in his office, looking at the beautiful city through the large floor-to-ceiling glass. Quinn, look at what a beautiful city this is, Deacon said, opening his arms to welcome the morning sun, and the warm sunlight made the vampire's cold body feel very comfortable. The glass here is specially made to effectively block ultraviolet rays. Quinn, a white strong man with a Scottish beard, was standing behind Deacon. This beautiful world is going to be handed over to humans to rule, which is an insult to us. Deacon's words were a little crazy. And the stupid elders are going to punish our kind for humans. Deacon, time is almost up. Lunka will be bathed in sunlight at 9 o'clock, and you are required to attend and watch. Quinn's words were calm with a hint of anger. Yes, they want me to watch it, hoping to warn me. Deacon's words revealed a hint of disdain. Is the whereabouts of the Bible? Our people found out that it should have been taken away by the Shield people. It's not easy to get it out. Quinn frowned and replied. There will always be a way. Let's go, Quinn, go and say farewell to old Lunka. Let's witness the last journey of his life. And the elders are going to meet again. Deacon Feist left here first. Whist, have you seen this video on the internet? In an apartment in New York, Blade was holding a laptop and walked to Whist, who was making breakfast. The video was about the blood farm on the website of the Nightwalker Alliance. I saw it. Whist was making scrambled eggs, looked back and said, we have been hunting vampires for so many years, but we didn't find that there is such a place for vampires. Do you have any ideas, Whist? Blade turned off the computer and asked Whist. I think you have some ideas. Whist brought the scrambled eggs and toast bread for breakfast to Blade and said, yes, Whist. I have developed resistance to the serum now, and it will continue to grow. One day I will become one of those guys, and my time is limited. I need to do more things in a limited time. Blade took the plate of eggs and bread and said, if I have the tendency to become one of those monsters, remember to kill me before that. Blade looked at Whist and said seriously. Whist scooped 2 spoonfuls of scrambled eggs with a spoon, and after he slowly finished eating, he raised his head and stared into Blade's eyes, and said in a positive tone, don't worry, I will. Blade showed a smile on his face. Thanks to book friends, Crazy Peng Peng Moling at number 183, Moyu01 Anonymous 10 and Batista01 for their rewards again, thank you all. Regarding the replies in the book review area, because the author sometimes checks information or does other things, sometimes I don't reply in time. And some questions are easy to spoil the spoilers, so there is no reply, but I have read everyone's book reviews. Thank you for your support. If you like this book, you are welcome to collect and recommend it. Your support is the author's greatest motivation. Chapter 84, Deacon Firth's Thoughts. Lunka was executed on a coast in Atlantic City, surrounded by cliffs but with a relatively stable platform. Those who participated in the execution included the traditional vampire forces headed by the elder of the Council of Elders, Go Xianyu, and the newly emerging mixed-blood vampire forces in North America, headed by Deacon Faith. At the same time, several officials and agents of the human government monitored the execution. Lunka never expected that things would turn out like this. His blood farm is the most important blood supplier in the greater New York area. Because he not only provides high-priced plasma, but also a large amount of low-priced plasma. For example, some male plasma from blacks and Central Asians. The price of this kind of plasma is much cheaper than the refrigerated plasma provided by the human government. 100 cc units of plasma only cost $50, which is the food purchased by many vampires with limited financial conditions. There is also racial discrimination in the field of vampires, which is ridiculous but very realistic. Ironically, it is precisely because Lanka's blood farm provides a lot of low-priced plasma that some timid and poor vampires have food to fill their stomachs, so that they don't have to attack humans. In a sense, it even stabilizes the stability of the New York area. It is foreseeable that after losing Lanka's blood farm and there is no new low-priced food to supplement this vacuum period, the vampires in New York City will fall into a certain chaos. It is even possible to increase the number of vampire attacks. Lanka originally fled from the villa in New York and came directly to Atlantic City. This is a city where New Jersey and New York meet. It is also the headquarters of the North American Vampire Elders. There are a large number of casinos, dance halls and entertainment clubs here, most of which are vampire industries. Traditional vampires have been able to survive in the world for thousands of years. They are not a group of idiots who only know how to destroy but not build. Lanka also has his own industry in Atlantic City. Originally, even if the blood farm was destroyed, it would only be a loss of money for Lanka. He could still afford this kind of loss, but what he didn't expect was that Nightwalker Lee G then made a move to expose the whole incident. Originally, all vampire incidents were handled by the Vampire Special Processing Department, and many leaders of this department were from the vampire clan. As long as they were given enough benefits, they would easily suppress these incidents, and there would not be much disturbance on the public opinion and the government side. However, since the last incident of the Hudson River warehouse, Lee G's intervention broke this delicate relationship. The Hudson River warehouse incident also involved S.H.I.E.L.D., especially the exposure of the Vampire Bible. Although S.H.I.E.L.D. has not yet deciphered what the Bible is for, it has already made Nick Fury alert. S.H.I.E.L.D. does have many constraints, but this does not mean that S.H.I.E.L.D. is easy to mess with. As the most special violent agency in this country, it is more powerful than many organizations. S.H.I.E.L.D. monitored the intelligence of the blood farm earlier than the Special Processing Department. It was almost monitored when Peter just called the two TV stations. If Lee G and Peter had not left the villa earlier, they might have been blocked by S.H.I.E.L.D. agents in the villa. Because of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s intervention, the whole incident became a major event known to the top government officials. Not all the people in the U.S. government are appeasers who compromise with vampires, but there are many people who advocate the complete extermination of vampires, such as Bu Juno. That's why there was a joint meeting between humans and vampires before, and in order not to cause a full-scale war, Go Xianyu could only throw out Lanka as a scapegoat. At 10 o'clock in the morning on the beach, the sun had risen very high. The sun in September is not so hot, and it still brings a warm feeling to people on the shore where the sea breeze is howling. Wearing a special sunscreen, Deacon covered his eyes with his fingers, and he was staring at the sun through his fingers with sunglasses. How long has he been a vampire? 80 years? 100 years? Or 150 years? He can't remember clearly. I remember that when he just became a vampire, he was afraid of the sun. Just like when he was still a human, he was afraid of poisonous snakes. Until the past 30 years, technology is developing rapidly, and vampires can also bathe in the sun like humans. Although some vampires don't like this sticky special sunscreen and don't like the sun, Deacon Faith still admires the progress of human technology. The problems that vampires have been unable to solve for thousands of years have been solved by a few simple chemical equations. But this also aggravates his inner worries. One day, the progress of humans will make them unable to tolerate vampires. At that time, a comprehensive massacre is inevitable. Vampires are already at a disadvantage in terms of numbers. Deacon Faith thinks far ahead. He is already a vampire and can't go back to being a human. Even if he can go back, he doesn't want to be a human. The long life of vampires is desirable. Why are there ghost tribes in this world? Isn't it because of the longing for a long life? If humans and vampires have the upper hands in the confrontation, then Deacon Faith knows what will happen to vampires. Vampires will definitely become test subjects in human research institutes, doing various experiments, and humans are trying to unlock the secret of vampire longevity. In fact, what if it is now? Don't humans really have a secret to capture vampires for experiments? Deacon Faith believed that humans must have conducted experiments underground, and the so-called peace now was only false and fragile. This delicate balance was just an illusion, just like this incident. As long as the balance of peace was slightly shaken, it would inevitably slide towards the side of war. He looked at Go Xianyu in the distance. Go Xianyu is as elegant and graceful as ever. Perhaps 100 years ago, Go Xianyu was a suitable leader. He was wise and good at dealing with major forces, but now the vampires were actually on the verge of extinction. It seemed that the vampires had earned a lot of money during the decades of peace, but this prosperous wealth was just like the morning dew, and it would eventually disappear when the sun rose. Deacon didn't know whether Go Xianyu really realized the predicament of the Blood Clan. Let me go. Let me go. A burst of scolding interrupted Deacon's thoughts. The car carrying Lunka arrived, and Lunka, sitting in the car, was scolding loudly. He was wearing a hood and his voice was not very clear. Go Cheyenne you. How dare you betray me? I'm fighting for the Empire. Before Lunka finished speaking, he was beaten back by a bodyguard who was escorting him with a baton. The baton hit Lunka's covered head directly, and the bright red blood instantly reflected the black hood red. Lunka seemed to be beaten unconscious. Two bodyguards escorted Lunka to the platform, took off his hood and tore open his clothes. Under the holy sunlight, Lunka, who was unprotected, instantly turned into a ball of flying ash. The vampires present felt a little sad. Deacon did not look at Lunka's death, but stared at Go Cheyenne you. Feeling Deacon's gaze, Go Cheyenne you turned his head and looked at him. The corners of his mouth seemed to move, but he didn't say anything. Go Cheyenne you was the first to leave this place that made him unhappy. Deacon looked at Go Cheyenne you, who was going away, and thought that he couldn't let this old guy continue to rule the Blood Clan. One day all vampires will be buried in this man's hands. Thanks to book friends, Yakumotsu Kigachi Batista 01. I enjoy eating God's Moling in number 183, Moyuzulang Lunwei and other book friends for their rewards. Thank you very much. Oh, there are 3 updates today, and the third update will be released at 11:45 p.m. If you like this book, please collect and recommend it. Your support is the author's greatest motivation. Chapter 85 September 21st. Roland, shall we go to the jewelry store later? The store on the corner recently bought a batch of bohemian-style jewelry. It's time to go home at Metropolitan Middle School. Although these students are already in their 3rd year of high school, American universities do not completely look at the joint entrance examination scores, and some people, like Lee Ji, are not going to college. So everyone's study pressure is not particularly heavy. So a girl is inviting her friends to go shopping after school. The girl named Roland is very quiet. She has long brown black hair, thick eyebrows and big eyes, giving people a very spiritual feeling. Her lips are not painted with lipstick, but they also show a healthy and beautiful red. Hearing her friend's invitation, she smiled faintly. I think it should be possible, but we'd better go home early today. Why? Are your parents afraid that you will play too late and will give you a house arrest order? The girl said with a smile. Let's go, Roland. I think we may have time to watch a movie after looking at jewelry before going home. In the class next to Roland, Lee Ji and Peter were also packing up and preparing to go home. Did you remind Gwen? Tonight is the Carnival of Vampires, so she had better not go out. Lee Ji packed his school bag and walked to Peter's side and asked quietly. Oh, I reminded her. She wanted to know why, but I don't know how to explain it. Although she promised that she would stay at home tonight and persuade her family to stay at home, she asked me to explain why afterwards. Peter scratched his head in distress. Gwen was a very independent girl. She believed that what Peter did must have a meaning, but she needed an explanation. So she agreed to Peter's suggestion that she stay at home tonight, but she needed a reasonable explanation. This really troubled Peter. How should he tell Gwen about the special situation tonight? Okay, buddy, let's get through this first. Lee Ji patted Peter's shoulder, and the two walked out of the classroom together. Just after walking out of the classroom, a girl running in the corridor almost bumped into the two. However, Lee Ji and Peter reacted quickly and dodged the girl. But the girl was startled by the sudden appearance of the two people, and her feet slipped and almost fell. Oh girl, be careful. Lee Ji and Peter reached out to support the girl at the same time. Wendy, I told you not to be so anxious, the phone must still be in the classroom. A girl who caught up with them was panting and said, it was Roland and her friend. Oh thank you thank you. The girl named Wendy looked at Lee Ji a little embarrassedly, completely ignoring Peter next to her. Are you okay, Wendy? Roland walked to Wendy and asked. It's okay, let's go Roland. Wendy wanted to take Roland away from here, but looked back at Lee Ji. Roland also looked back at Lee Ji curiously, and his pupils shrank for a moment, and then expanded again. There was some confusion in his eyes. Oh man, it seems that you have bewitched this girl. Peter watched the two girls walk into the next classroom and bumped Lee Ji's chest with his elbow. I can't help it, I'm just so charming. Lee Ji also said shamelessly. Peter pretended to vomit as if he couldn't stand you. The two left the school in a quarrel. Because of the previous speculation, everyone believed that vampires would definitely come out to cause trouble during the Vampire Carnival on September 21st, so Li Ji and Peter had already made preparations. Li Ji drove to pick up his grandfather Li Rong today to go home and rest early, and went to Mr. Li restaurant to replace his grandfather. The restaurant is usually open until 9 o'clock in the evening. After the restaurant closed, Li Ji went home to take a shower, and then pretended to be tired and went to rest early. Then he locked the door of his room and sneaked out of the house. In the Nightwalker base, several people who were grouped together for various reasons were standing in front of the conference table. "This is the earplug I made a few days ago," Peter said, taking out a few earplugs and putting them on the table. "Using a very small signal amplifier, we can ensure long-distance radio calls. And it also has several special channels built in, which are a collection of New York police stations, police radio contact stations, SWAT special channels, and signal stations of several other government departments. We can use these earplugs to monitor various situations happening in New York City at the first time." Li Ji picked up an earplug and a signal amplifier and put them on himself, and the others all put on headphones. "Well done, Spider-Man." Damon put on his headphones and praised. "Thanks to a retired police officer who provided me with so much useful information about the police force and various government internals, I was able to do it so smoothly." Peter pointed at Damon and made a gesture of Everyone smiled softly, and the only one with a bitter face was Mindy, who was doing homework in the distance. Frank had contacted a school for her. She is now in the 6th grade of elementary school, but she has fallen behind in her studies, so Peter and Li Ji have been tutoring her. Fortunately, Mindy is very smart and learns quickly. "Nightwalker, what do you think we should do?" In the past, Frank was the one who directed the operation and arranged the tasks, but this time he asked Li Ji to speak. This was Frank trying to train Li Ji. During the days of working with Li Ji, Frank thought that Li Ji was a promising talent. He had enough sense of justice in his heart, and he was not too kind like Peter, nor too tyrannical like himself. The only thing he lacked was that he was not strong enough and lacked experience. But these can be accumulated over time, so Frank tried to make Li Ji the leader of the team instead of himself. Li Ji sorted out his thoughts and spoke. "There are only 4 of us. It is obviously impossible to spread out throughout New York to restrain those vampires. Even the 4 of us are stretched to the limit to defend the entire Queens. So I personally think that we can only focus on monitoring, and first of all, we can only supervise Queens. Frank, Damon and I will patrol in Queens, and Spider-Man, you are the fastest in the city, so be ready to be a firefighter. If there is a need for support or a place we can't rush to, I'll have to ask you," Li Ji said and glanced at Peter. "Okay, I understand, but if we are only responsible for Queens, what if there are vampire attacks in other districts?" Peter asked his question. "We can't save everyone, and sometimes we have to make some choices." Li Ji's tone was a little helpless, and this sentence made Peter secretly clench his fist. "Spider-Man, don't worry too much. Although the government is incompetent, not everyone will sit and wait for death." Frank glanced at Peter and said, "At least S.H.I.E.L.D. will send more people to patrol tonight, so be careful not to mess with S.H.I.E.L.D. people." Frank reminded. "Okay gentlemen, let's take action. We will be very busy tonight." Finally, with Li Ji's call, everyone left the base and stepped into the vast night. Roland's role was provided by Book Friend. 160,926,212,050,389, thanks to Book Friend, Batista01 Moling and number 183. Mo you for the reward again. Thank you very much for supporting this book. If you like this book, please recommend it for collection. Your support is the author's greatest motivation. Chapter 86 Unusual Calmness. Are you really determined to do this, Deacon? Quinn, Deacon Fuss's top confidant, was standing in Deacon's office, asking Deacon in an uneasy tone. "Yes, Quinn, the food from the Middle East will take another week to arrive in the United States. But today is a holiday, and the farms in Lunka have been destroyed." Deacon sat back in his office chair, holding his chin with one hand. The low-priced plasma supply in New York City has been cut off for a week. The Council of Elders has no intention of using money to subsidize ordinary vampires who are short of funds. The human government's blood bank has raised the price again because the supply and demand relationship is becoming increasingly tight. The price of a pack of refrigerated plasma has risen to $235. Many people have been hungry for a week. Vampires who are weak due to lack of food are not even the opponents of ordinary humans. Quinn, after this incident in Lunka, I finally understand what kind of disgusting purebloods like Gauchian you are. They don't care about half-blood vampires like us. Although we are nominally part of the Empire, we are always exploited by purebloods. Deacon leaned back in his chair and took a deep breath. This is exactly the dilemma he faces. In the past 100 years, Deacon has become the leader of half-blood vampires. Blood slaves and half-blood vampires follow his lead. Purebloods have a lot of resources in their hands, and most half-bloods work for purebloods. Compared with the wealth accumulated by those purebloods, half-bloods are much more miserable. In fact, vampires are relatively wealthy. Even mixed-blood vampires are relatively wealthy compared to ordinary people. But don't forget that the price of food for vampires is very expensive. Intake of 100 cc of plasma in 3 days is the lowest bottom line, otherwise the vampire will fall into deep sleep due to lack of energy. If you want to ensure that the vampire has a strong vitality, 200 cc of plasma per day is necessary. In this way, if a vampire buys plasma from the human blood bank normally, the monthly expenditure will not be less than $12,000. And this is the price before the price of plasma increased. Because the blood farm in Lunka was destroyed, the low-priced plasma in New York City was out of stock instantly. As a result, many vampires can only buy high-priced government plasma. According to the profit-seeking nature of the capital market, the department responsible for selling plasma has increased the price of plasma. For wealthy pureblood, or mixed-blood vampires who have lived for a long time and have accumulated considerable wealth, the monthly expenditure of more than $10,000 is not large. But don't forget that there are still many newly converted vampires in this world, especially the large number of blood slaves under Deacon, who have only been converted for 10 years. They don't have that much money. Now there are only 2 ways in front of them. Either starve and watch their power drain away and fall into sleep, or attack humans, which not only solves the food problem but also makes some money. As Deacon Fuss's right-hand man, Quinn is very clear about Deacon's current predicament. No matter which path he chooses, there are huge risks for Deacon, the leader of the mixed-blood vampires. The Elders' Council clearly used the Lunka incident to restrain Deacon, whose influence is growing, and even took the opportunity to get rid of some mixed-blood vampires. Don't these old immortals understand who is supporting this crumbling empire? Quinn's sharp claws pierced his palm, causing him to bleed, but he didn't feel any pain. Because his heart hurts more. This corrupt system needs to be reformed. Deacon stood up and looked at the lights of the city. Change requires blood and sacrifice, and someone needs to die for a glorious cause. You're right, Deacon. We shouldn't keep silent any longer. I really hope I can see you succeed one day. A new age for vampires. Quinn smiled and said, "Maybe I should go, brother." "Goodbye, my brother," Deacon murmured as he watched Quinn leave the office and gradually go away. It wasn't until Quinn walked away that Deacon punched the desk hard, breaking the solid oak desk into 2 pieces. "Director, I don't think it's a good idea for us to move this thing out." Agent Hill was standing in the underground garage of the Shield building outside New York, talking to Nick Fury, who was standing beside her. "Especially if it's not our people who are escorting it." Looking at the SWAT members in special service uniforms, Hill lowered his voice and said in Nick's ear, "Agent Hill, this is the decision of the Security Group Council. They think it's safer for them to keep it." Nick watched 2 SHIELD agents carry a password box and load it onto the special SWAT vehicle. Then he strode out of the underground garage. "Do you really think SWAT can complete this mission?" Agent Hill asked Nick Fury. "Maybe. Anyway, this matter is not our responsibility now," Nick Fury said indifferently. "When did you become so indifferent to these things?" Hill said with some doubt. "When there is no need to care." Nick's mouth showed a meaningless smile. In the dark night, a 1975 classic Ford GT Mustang was wandering on the streets of New York. The driver was Blade, who was patrolling the streets of New York. As a warrior who has dealt with vampires for many years, he knew very well what day it was today. There would always be some trouble on this day every year, but the previous troubles were just small troubles and did not cause any major conflicts. But after arriving in New York, especially after seeing the video on the Nightwalker Alliance website, Blade smelled an unusual smell of danger. This unusual feeling made him tense. "Whist, have you found anything?" He picked up the intercom in the car to contact his partner. "Not yet, Blade, maybe you need to look around more. New York is as quiet as a clear water pond without fish today." Whist told Blade through the intercom that there was nothing special going on. Blade touched his short hair and the back of his neck with some doubt. The same doubts occurred to Lee Ji and the other 4 people. There was a car accident on 6th Street in Queens, and the nearby police force. There was a burglary in the 7th block, and the caller called the police. Someone in the 13th block complained about the noise made by the neighbors, and the police patrolling nearby. Lee Ji and others listened to the police and government radio stations with headphones, but found nothing. There was no suspicious alarm that could be related to the vampire attack. Spider-Man, did you find anything? Lee Ji contacted Peter through the headset. No, if I just caught 2 petty thieves stealing cars on the roadside. Peter's voice also revealed an incredible feeling. Are all the vampires on holiday today? Or have they found a place to hide and have a meal? Don't let your guard down. The calmer the water surface, the more turbulent the undercurrent underground. Frank's voice interrupted the conversation. I think we should expand the patrol area. This kind of silence makes me feel bad. Big Daddy Damon's tone was a little worried. What tricks are these vampires playing? Lee Ji felt a real headache. Thanks to the book friends, Fanho ZZW Shine Fanglian Moling 183 Moyu Batista 01 for the reward. Thanks to the book friend, Crazy West for the 10,000 starting coins reward, which made this book gain its first helmsman. Thank you very much. Thank you to the book friend Canis Lupus for the reward, which made this book gain its second helmsman. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your love for this book. Oh. Chapter 87 Chaos in New York. Today is the Carnival of Vampires. For any group, festivals should be a day worth celebrating. But for some vampires, this festival is nothing to celebrate. Hanmo is a vampire who has no desire to celebrate. He is a mixed-blood vampire, not a pure-blooded one. There are many small people like him in the Empire. He has just been a vampire for less than 15 years. Originally, he had been relying on buying low-priced plasma from Lunka Farm to resist his thirst for blood. Hanmo himself is still quite averse to directly hunting humans, because he has not completely lost his human reason before, and has not been overwhelmed by the desire for blood. But he has not had a good week. Lanka's blood farm was destroyed, and there is no such cheap blood in the whole New York City. As a low-level vampire, his income is not high. His job is to be a waiter in a vampire bar opened by pure-blooded vampires. He only earns a few $1,000s a month. After deducting necessary expenses, there is actually not much money left. Maybe it sounds strange to you, vampires also need money? Yes, vampires also need money, US dollars, and euros. As long as they are still alive in this world, and the mainstream of this world is still human, then they must abide by some rules, such as paying for things. After all, you can't bite every human you see to death. If that were the case, this vampire would have been killed long ago. Hanmo is a person who spends as much as he earns. He has not eaten blood for 2 days because he lacks savings. Eating normal food is just to fill the stomach, but without blood, vampires will lose energy and begin to weaken slowly. The price of the government blood bank has been raised. A generation of 100cc plasma costs $235 US. Hanmo's money has been spent. Originally, he knew that the boss of the mixed blood vampires, Deacon Fess, had a batch of fresh food. Although Hanmo himself does not like to eat humans directly, he doesn't care so much when he's hungry. He originally expected that today would be another real festival, at least to fill his stomach. But he was disappointed. Now everyone is spreading the news that the food Deacon brought was intercepted. This made him very depressed. In fact, it was not just him who was depressed. More vampires who came from other states were even more disappointed. Although Deacon promised to deliver a new batch of food at the beginning of next month, Hanmo couldn't wait any longer. He was afraid that he would fall into coma due to lack of energy in a few days. So today he was going to attack humans for the first time. However, the leader of the mixed blood vampires nearby brought a strange message today. It was required that all vampires were not allowed to make any moves after 10 o'clock in the evening. If they really wanted to attack humans, they had to wait until after 10 o'clock. Although he didn't know why, Hanmo was still prepared to abide by the above regulations. After all, there was no benefit in going against the leader. It was already past 10 o'clock, and Hanmo was already feeling extremely hungry. He was lurking outside a human nightclub, where there were always some beautiful girls coming in and out. The girls' blood had a fatal attraction for vampires. A girl in high heels was hugging her male companion, and the two had just come out of the nightclub, talking and laughing. It seemed that the two had just met in the nightclub and were about to do something. Walking out of the street, the two were going to pick up the car where the man parked. Hanmo rushed up and punched the man on the head. Although he hadn't eaten for 2 days, Hanmo's strength had not completely subsided and was still much stronger than a normal human. The man was knocked unconscious by his punch. The girl was so scared that she wanted to scream when she saw her male companion was knocked unconscious and Hanmo showed his fangs. Hanmo stretched out his hand and covered the girl's mouth to prevent her from making any sound. Then he was about to bite the girl's neck. The girl's sweet blood seemed to be able to smell through the skin, and the smell attracted him. Whoosh! A white spider silk directly stuck to Hanmo's head, and a huge pulling force directly dragged Hanmo away from the girl. Li Ji was standing 20 meters away and dragging Hanmo. The moment the spider silk pulled Hanmo closer, he used his mithril longsword to cut Hanmo in half. In an instant, a red light flashed, and Hanmo turned into ashes. The girl in the distance was already scared and stupid, and the current situation made her not know what to do. "Call the police, miss," Li Ji shouted from a distance, and then he didn't have time to care about this girl. Because he was almost busy now. Everyone thought it was quiet today, but after 10 o'clock, the police radio began to be busy. Many suspicious or vampire-like calls came in. Li Ji and his 4 people began to circle around the greater Queens area, and the actions of these vampires were like an infectious disease, quickly spreading throughout New York. Li Ji had just dealt with a vampire incident in another block. It was 3 vampires attacking a white-collar worker who came home late, and the nearby residents saw it and called the police. The white-collar worker failed to escape the clutches of the vampires, and Li Ji, who was a step late, could only purify the 3 vampires. Now he is very busy because a new alarm sounded in the headset. "Oh God, there are too many vampires." Peter's complaining voice came from the headset, and he was even busier as a firefighter. "Are they crazy? Are they forcing humans to go to war with them?" Frank was standing in front of 2 vampires. In the dark alley, he easily cut their necks with a mithril dagger. The vampires are playing tricks. The whole of New York is in chaos. Damon was driving to the 7th block, where a similar vampire attack had also occurred. Maybe this is a good thing, so that the government can't cover up the truth. If so many people have seen vampires. Li Ji was moving quickly on the street and said, "Don't underestimate the power of capital and power. If vampires really want to start a full-scale war, humans will also pay a heavy price." Frank said, "Not everyone has the ability to deal with vampires. Politicians always have more considerations." One interesting thing about the attacks tonight is that the places are relatively scattered, and the scale of the attacks is not large. It is often just 1 or a few vampires, sporadically attacking humans. It is completely different from the large-scale attacks that everyone had previously speculated. But it is this kind of attack that makes everyone run around, not just Li Ji and the other 4. Now almost all the police officers on duty in New York have been mobilized. A bank robbery occurred in Buffalo. The suspect blew up the bank's underground vault. An alarm was sounded, but the suspect was blocked by the police. The suspect is currently holding nearby passers-by hostage and confronting the police. SWAT is dispatched by helicopter for support. The news of SWAT dispatch came from the headset again. This is the 4th such news tonight. Several cities near New York have experienced similar serious crimes, and almost all the SWAT teams in New York City have been mobilized. There is no extra police force in New York now. "Boss, what do you think we are going to deliver?" A member of the SWAT team, who was in charge of the escort from SHIELD, was curiously looking at the password box. The captain sitting in the co-pilot seat of the escort vehicle said with half-squinted eyes, "Don't care what it is. Don't ask us things we shouldn't know. I don't know what's going on up there. Let us deliver SHIELD stuff. No one in this department is easy to deal with. Cheer up, guys. We have to complete the mission safely and then go home to sleep." Thanks to book friends, Dwayne G. Mourner, Hope, Canis, Lupus, Yerkumo, Moonlight, Batista 01 for their rewards. Thank you very much. If you like this book, please collect and recommend it. Your support is the author's greatest motivation. Chapter 88 Ambush. New York is not very far from the DCHSD, only about 300 kilometers. SWAT dispatched 3-wheeled armored vehicles to escort the transport, with a total of 25 members responsible for bodyguard work. Under normal circumstances, it takes less than 4 hours to reach HSD. The 3 escort vehicles are passing through Queens and preparing to enter Manhattan Island. After passing through the Lincoln Tunnel and heading south, They can drive onto the highway leading to the HSD. The convoy is currently driving on an elevated road in Queens. Oh, it looks like the other members will be very busy today. There is naturally an internal SWAT radio in the escort vehicle, and the radio keeps sending information about SWAT's dispatch today. A member of the escort team said with a smile. At least escorting things to HSD is a very simple job. Except for the companion who drove the car, the others might be able to squint a little in the car. The other team members in the car seemed to be more casual, and the only one who was still fully alert was the team commander Mike Tavish. He is a very serious person at work. Guys, I think I'd better stay alert and don't let down my guard. I understand, boss, but singing in the car should be okay. A team member replied with a smile. While the team members were joking with each other, there was a problem on the road ahead. A large container truck seemed to have its tires slipped, and the entire vehicle lost control. Finally, with the efforts of the driver, the vehicle was stranded in the middle of the road. Don't stop, the rear vehicle becomes the front vehicle, and the entire team turns around and goes to another road. HSD Commander Mike quickly gave orders. All team members are on alert, and I require that all heavy machine guns equipped on all armored vehicles be ready to fire at any time. Mike's instructions were orderly, not only because he was an excellent team commander, but also because he was an excellent sniper. Snipers are required to be calm under any circumstances, and Mike brought this style into his command. Under Mike's instructions, all teammates did not have a joking expression. As one of the world's top urban warfare expert forces, the SWAT team has excellent tactical qualities. Everyone began to enter the combat state, the safety pins of the guns were pulled, and the heavy machine guns mounted on the armored vehicles were loaded. Just as all the team members were preparing to turn around and take the lead car according to the instructions, several vehicles that looked like ordinary family cars suddenly accelerated and rushed towards the armored vehicle. They were just following the road from a distance, and it didn't look like they were deliberately following the armored vehicle. But at this moment, these vehicles found that the road ahead was blocked, but they still rushed forward. Their target was very clear, that is, the SWAT team's vehicle. Enemy attack. The team members of the rear car immediately sounded the alarm. All team members, free fire. All team members, free fire. Don't let them block our way, rush out quickly and ask for help from headquarters. Mike immediately gave the order to open fire. The most important thing for a commander is to make decisions on the spot. At this time, even if the drivers are ordinary people, even if the vehicles are just out of control, he must minimize the danger. The heavy machine guns on the 3 armored vehicles roared first. The Browning M2 heavy machine gun is the standard equipment of the U.S. military and is widely used in various troops as heavy fire suppression. The 3-wheeled armored vehicles are also equipped with Browning M2 heavy machine guns. The 12.7mm caliber heavy machine guns roared loudly. The 3 heavy machine guns formed a fire net symbolizing death on the narrow road surface, and the large caliber and powerful heavy machine gun bullets hit the cars on the road. The hard cement road surface was hit by huge gaps, and the originally flat road surface became bumpy like skin with a sore. The 12.7mm heavy machine gun bullet hits the human body, and only one shot can kill a person completely. Because of the huge kinetic energy after the bullet is fired, a huge cavity effect will be produced at the moment it penetrates the human body. In some special cases, a bullet can even cut a person in half. The whistling bullets with huge kinetic energy swept towards the 8 cars rushing towards the convoy. The nearest of the 8 cars was only 300 meters away from the convoy, which was a very short distance for a fully accelerated car. The heavy machine guns were spitting flames crazily, and bullets were poured mercilessly in the direction of these vehicles. 2 cars had been directly blown up and parked on the side. The other 6 cars were still accelerating towards the convoy. The members of the SWAT team had already come out of the car, except for the heavy machine gunner who was ready to fire and the driver who was ready to drive away at any time. The other 19 members had already got out of the car fully armed and on guard, and everyone relied on the armored vehicle to deploy a defensive posture. Captain, the signal in this area has just been blocked, and our signal source cannot be sent out. The team member who was in the car and was responsible for contacting the headquarters said anxiously to Captain Mike. Damn, this is a premeditated attack. Someone betrayed us and revealed our route. Mike already knew that this was not a simple attack. It was not a sudden terrorist attack on the United States or something like that. It was obviously a premeditated attack. The enemy knew the direction and route of the team's advance. They had prepared all the ambushes early on. All team members attacked the vehicle together. A heavy machine gun turned its muzzle and fired at the truck. There must be something wrong with that truck. Under Mike's command, all the team members took action again. This time, not only 3 heavy machine guns began to fire, but also the assault rifles in the hands of 19 team members began to pour fire. Under Mike's command, a heavy machine gun turned its muzzle and began to fire at the container of the large truck. Hiding ambushes in containers is a very common scene in SWAT's daily exercises. Now there is no need to worry about whether civilians will be injured by mistake. The metal storm fired by the M2 heavy machine gun made huge bullet holes in the truck's container. At this time, the side door of the truck's container was opened. Mike's expectation was correct that there was an ambush inside the truck. But he didn't know that the people ambushing inside were not ordinary humans. The side was opened, and you can see that the truck container is extremely bloody, and the broken limbs torn by the heavy machine gun and the splattered blood are all over the container. But although these guys were seriously injured, no one died, and 2 Gatling guns were pushed out by these guys. What is the best way to suppress heavy firepower? Let the enemy taste even more terrible heavy firepower. Captain, be careful. The other side has a Vulcan cannon. The team member who was at the heavy machine gun position saw from a distance what the other side pushed out, and he shouted heartbreakingly. The firing rate of the M2 is only 600 rounds per minute. Although it is powerful, the firing rate is not very fast. But what monster did the other side push out? The 2 big guys loaded in the container truck are not the 7.62mm caliber 6-barrel Gatling machine guns that are usually mounted on the Hummer. Instead, they are 20mm caliber 5-barrel Gatling Vulcan cannons equipped on the A-10 attack aircraft. As long as there is enough ammunition, this kind of thing can theoretically reach a terrifying firing rate of 10,000 rounds per minute. Even in actual use, the firing rate of the Vulcan cannon is generally controlled to 2,000 rounds per minute. This thing is a real death blade. The team member responsible for the heavy machine gun shooting immediately adjusted the muzzle, preparing to destroy the 2 Vulcan cannons first, otherwise everything will be over. The team member's reaction was not slow, and the Browning M2 heavy machine gun fired fiercely at a Vulcan cannon. Another heavy machine gunner who heard his reminder also turned his gun to prepare to attack another Vulcan cannon. But it was too late. The ambushers had already set up the Vulcan cannon, and the sound of the motor's rotation had already sounded. Under the rotation of the high-speed motor, 120mm caliber Vulcan bullet after another was pushed into the barrel of the gun, and the rain of death was about to hit. The character of Mike Tavish was provided by the book friend, Sleepingen. Thank you very much. I made a slight modification to this character because there are too many Chinese characters in this book. Thanks to the book friends, Gao Jia Shu Tong Batista 01 Moling 183, Moyu's reward, thank you very much. Thank you for the support of all book friends. The author said that he would try his best to write this book to repay the support of all book friends. The author would like to express his gratitude to everyone here again. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89, Total Annihilation. The heavy machine gunner's firepower was somewhat useful. He broke the rotation system of a Vulcan cannon, and the firing range of this Vulcan cannon was locked. But the other Vulcan was ready. The vampire operating the Vulcan cannon had already aimed the muzzle at the armored vehicle closest to him. The current Vulcan cannon, or Gatling gun, is not designed to use the thrust generated by the primer of the ammunition to complete the mechanical recoil movement and complete the function of continuous firing like the traditional machine gun. Instead, it uses a high-speed driven motor to quickly load ammunition. When the sound of the high-speed motor sounds, it proves that death is not far away from you. The firing button of the Vulcan cannon was pressed, and the roaring sound of the motor sounded, followed by the crazy pouring out of the muzzle of the ammunition. If the 3 M2 heavy machine guns formed a dense net, then the firepower poured out by a Vulcan cannon is like a hearty rainstorm. The rainstorm is coming, and there is nowhere to hide. Every raindrop is a call of death, and the ammunition that has broken free from its restraints cheers and roars. They were so noisy that they broke the air barrier recklessly. They were so crazy that they tore apart even the hard armor easily. They were so dangerous that they killed even the tenacious life without scruples. The rainstorm had not stopped yet, but blood had already covered the long street. When the last drop of rain hit the broken armored vehicle and made the last sound, the whole world seemed to return to peace at this moment. Like the ice surface melted by many small holes after being splashed by hot iron slurry, there was no intact road surface on this section of the viaduct. The Vulcan cannon avoided the armored vehicle with the code box. The current scene was so weird that two armored vehicles that had become a pile of scrap metal stopped on the road. The broken limbs and torn internal organs of more than a dozen people mixed with red blood covered this section of the road. The people who ambushed them had stopped firing the Vulcan cannon, and the car that had rushed towards the convoy had stopped in front of the convoy. 25 fully armed men got off 5 cars. The one in charge of this operation in the container truck was Quinn, Dick and Fess's confidant. 15 vampires also got off the other damaged cars. Ordinary bullets could not kill them. At Quinn's signal, the other vampires hiding in the container who had not been injured by the heavy machine gun and were still capable of fighting walked towards the last armored vehicle with their weapons. All dead, Dick is dead, old Fess is dead, everyone is dead. The only 4 people still alive were the heavy machine gunner and the driver of the armored vehicle that was responsible for escorting the password box. And Mike and a young team member who hid next to this armored vehicle when the Vulcan cannon attacked just now. The young team member's eyes were sluggish, with a light of fear in his pupils, and he kept saying that everyone was dead. Wake up! Wake up! Mike pushed the team member next to him hard. The young team member suddenly lost control under Mike's push, rushed out of the armored vehicle, and picked up his rifle to shoot wildly. All of you, go to hell. As his gunshots rang out, the heavy machine gunner who had not recovered from his shock also reacted, and he pressed the trigger of the M2 heavy machine gun again. The bloodthirsty beasts that had originally calmed down roared again. But they didn't understand that vampires would not be killed by such ordinary bullets. These vampires were wearing a full set of combat equipment, which were real wartime equipment. Deacon Fess was determined to succeed in this operation. The current vampires were not powerless against humans. As long as all the resources within the vampires could be integrated, then the vampires would have the strength to fight against humans. And to integrate the vampires, especially to command those stubborn purebloods, then he was determined to get the things in this car. He paid an unimaginable price for this operation, so he could only succeed and not fail. If he failed, it would mean that the vampire empire would step into the graveyard, and it was only a matter of time. The human butcher knife would one day reach out to the vampires. The bullets from the heavy machine guns and rifles roared at the vampires, and these vampires had no intention of dodging. Originally, their physical fitness was much stronger than that of ordinary people, and with the protective equipment they wore, the bullets from the rifles could not cause any harm to them. The bullets from the heavy machine guns could indeed penetrate their bodies, but this was of no use and could not stop them from advancing. The vampires also fired back, and more than a dozen vampires with assault rifles fired at the 2 people. Under the state of being attacked from the front and back, it was useless for you to dodge no matter how you tried. The 2 team members who tried to resist at the end were instantly shot into a hornet's nest. The driver sitting in the armored vehicle was already scared. SWAT is an urban special operations force, not the kind of force that fights positional battles with the enemy on the front line. Not every team member has the courage to face death without fear, so he abandoned the armored vehicle and prepared to escape. Maybe his brain was already scared silly. How could he run at this time? Where could he run to? Bang! A bullet pierced his head, and direct death at least saved him from suffering more. Mike's heart was bleeding. These were his buddies who had followed him through life and death for several years. If they all died in this operation, he might not be able to survive. But even if he died, he was ready to bite off a piece of flesh from the other party before he died. I know what you want. Mike leaned against the armored vehicle, holding a password box in his hand, and shouted to the vampires who were walking towards the armored vehicle. There is a self-destruct device here, and I have pressed the button. Mike said with a hint of coldness on his face. But it has not been destroyed yet, because the button has not rebounded to trigger the switch. Hearing Mike's words, the leading Quinn made a gesture to stop the vampires from moving forward. Don't think about shooting me. As long as I let go, what you want will be gone. Mike's words were a little cruel. Why should I believe you? Quinn said. You can choose not to believe it, as long as you dare to pay the price. The firm expression on Mike's face made Quinn wonder whether what he said was true or false. Give us the box, and we can let you leave alive. Quinn said and negotiated with Mike. but he made an imperceptible gesture behind his back. Do you think I will believe you? You are not human at all. Mike has seen the characteristics of these guys who are almost invincible. He knows that these guys he is facing are not easy to deal with. What Mike is doing now is just to delay time. Although he has lost contact with the headquarters, he believes that the New York police will come to support him with such a big commotion here. As for the support of SWAT, he doesn't know if he can wait, because he knows through the radio that almost all SWATs are dispatched tonight. But what Mike doesn't know is that not only the power of SWAT has been drained tonight, but even the New York police have no manpower to dispatch. All the police officers have been sent out to put out fires all over the city. We are indeed not human, but we are more trustworthy than humans. Quinn lied with his eyes open. You still. Before Mike finished speaking, a figure fell from the sky and pounced on him directly. Humans can train special forces who are good at lurking and hiding, and vampires can do the same, or even better than humans. Because vampires have stronger physical abilities than humans. The vampire had been hiding behind Quinn's army. Quinn made gestures behind him to let him go around to investigate, and Quinn deliberately spoke in front to distract Mike's attention. The vampire quietly went around to the back of Mike and climbed onto the armored vehicle. From his position, he could see that Mike was just bluffing, and the password box did not have any so-called self-destruct device. So he pounced on Mike directly, and his sharp fangs directly inserted into the blood vessels on Mike's neck. He liked the blood of living people very much, and he was never picky about food, regardless of whether he was a man or a woman. Mike wanted to struggle, but he couldn't get rid of the vampire's strong embrace. Okay, don't waste time, bring the box. We're leaving. Quinn interrupted the vampire's action of sucking blood. He could only reluctantly let go of Mike and pick up the password box. He also took out a knife and prepared to give Mike another knife. A silver-white arc of light suddenly broke through the darkness and passed through the vampire's neck with a beautiful arc. The vampire turned into ashes in a red light before he could struggle. This is an S-shaped boomerang. Not many people use boomerangs as combat weapons, and Blade Warrior happens to be one of them. Quinn, long time no see. Quinn's familiar voice came from behind him. Blade Warrior, wearing black leather and special combat uniform, was standing on the top of the truck they used to block the road. Blade is. Before Quinn finished speaking, there was another gunshot, and another vampire also returned to the embrace of their ancestor god. On the tall building in the distance, the sniper rifle in the hand of Big Daddy Damon was still steaming. How long will it take for you to get here? Everything the vampires did tonight seems to be for the action here. I'll be there soon, Big Daddy. Can you hold them back for a minute? Peter was swinging quickly in the city. I'm accelerating at full speed. Lee G was also rushing here quickly. Only Frank was far away from the area and needed more time to get here. I think we can hold them off for a little longer. It looks like a vampire hunter is helping us, Damon said as he looked through the scope at Blade, who was fighting with a vampire. Thanks to the Buck friends, Zanzhanjohu Batista 01 Sleepingen for the reward. Thank you very much. If you like this book, please bookmark and recommend it. Your support is the author's greatest motivation. Chapter 90, Surrounded from all sides. When the first gunshot of the SWAT team sounded, Damon, who was patrolling not far away, immediately found this place. After all, the sound of heavy machine guns is quite loud. By the time he rushed here to find a good place for support, the SWAT team had almost been wiped out. There was no other way. He could only use the sniper rifle to contain the vampires and immediately inform the other three of the intelligence here. Tonight's action was obvious. These vampires were trying to lure the tiger away from the mountain. They were setting fires everywhere in order to rob the escort vehicle this time. If the other members of the SWAT team were not lost, or if the New York police force was not drained, then the police who reacted would probably fight with these vampires. Deacon Faith's target was the things in the password box, and everything else was unimportant. Quinn, who was at the scene, was also very clear about this, and he roared, "Take your things and leave quickly. Now is not the time to reminisce with the old friend Blade Warrior." The last time they met, Blade cut off one of his arms. Although he was reborn, the hatred between the two also continued. But now is not a good time to take revenge. The most important thing is to take the things away immediately. Quinn commanded several vampires to take the password box and leave immediately, while he and other vampires picked up assault rifles and began to shoot at Blade. Just as ordinary bullets cannot kill vampires, This kind of bullet cannot kill Blade, who has vampire characteristics. However, the dense rain of bullets will injure him and make him unable to move for a certain period of time. So in order to avoid the rain of bullets, Blade turned over and entered the container of the truck, hiding behind the Vulcan cannon. The 20mm caliber Vulcan cannon is quite large, enough to cover Blade's entire body. Originally, Blade was going to try to use the Vulcan cannon for fire suppression. After all, this large caliber weapon can directly break the vampire's body in half. This will effectively prevent the vampire from retreating. But after studying it, Blade gave up. Because this dismantled Vulcan cannon is not the kind of thing that is integrated and installed on ships or aircraft, has a complete fire control system, and can fire with just the press of a button. Instead, it has to start powering, start the motor, preheat the motor, and other complicated steps before it can fire. Well, Blade has never played this kind of thing before, so he can only choose to give up. Those guys are ready to escape. Spider-Man, when can you get here? Damon fired 3 shots upstairs, all 3 of which accurately hit the vital points of the 3 vampires, sending the 3 vampires straight to hell. Although Damon installed a flash suppressor on the gun, the sound of the gunshot in the dark still allowed the vampires with extremely sharp hearing to discover Damon's position. Damon was only 300 meters away from this section of the viaduct, which was completely within the range of the AR assault rifles held by the vampires. The vampires immediately divided the firepower of 10 assault rifles and began to fire in the general direction of Damon. It was not necessary to be able to kill Damon, but just to suppress him with firepower so that he could not show his head. Hurry up, Spider-Man, I'm being suppressed by firepower here. Damon lowered his head and hid behind a low wall on the roof to avoid the firepower of the vampires. I'm here, Peter said as he rushed over from the other side of the viaduct. The vampires had already thrown the password box into the back seat of a car, and several vampires were driving intact cars and preparing to leave the scene. Spider-Man, the things are in the car, don't let them run away. Damon slightly popped his head and saw the car that was about to escape and reminded Peter. Peter, who as reminded, was still swinging in the air, but he still calmly shot spider webs at several cars. Since forming a team with Lee G, Peter's funds for manufacturing equipment have obviously increased a lot. This is especially true after Frank and Big Daddy joined. Frank can always get some special supplies that others can't get, and Big Daddy Damon has accumulated a lot of US dollars through years of robbing and stealing. Now Peter's spider silk sprayer has been upgraded and has become more useful. For example, the continuous spraying of large spider webs like now, one spider web is at least 10 square meters in size. The upgraded spider silk sprayer has a faster spray speed, and it has sprayed out 10 spider webs in just one breath. 10 spider webs covered the 3 cars that were about to evacuate. The spider silk that Peter made himself was no worse than the first-class products of the Osborne Group. The strong and tough spider silk instantly fixed several cars in place. Kill the guy on the swing. Quinn looked back and found the situation here. 4 people in the vampire crowd immediately took out rifle grenades and installed them on the muzzles. They just aimed at an approximate position and fired the rifle grenades towards Peter's position. Because this kind of rifle grenade is specially used for anti-infantry, one grenade contains nearly 60 tiny steel balls. 4 rifle grenades flew directly towards Peter's position. The firing speed of the rifle grenade is not particularly fast, at least it cannot break the speed of sound. Peter's spider sense is now very accurate. When the 4 people just appeared, he had a premonition of danger. Then he immediately used spider silk to escape from this direction, and at the same time, he also spit out several spider webs in the direction of several people. Several huge spider webs collided with the rifle grenades. Boom! A huge explosion resounded through the sky. Most of the steel ball fragments were blocked by the spider web, but there were still some that slipped through the net. Oh damn it! A steel ball brushed Peter's thigh. Fortunately, it did not hit the aorta in the thigh, but only tore Peter's surface muscle tissue. This was not a very serious injury, but it distracted Peter and he fell directly from the spider silk. Peter's actions attracted a considerable part of the vampire firepower, which eased the firepower suppression on the Blade side. Blade was able to hide behind the Vulcan cannon and shoot back. He used a Remington 870 shotgun, but now he was not firing the shotgun loaded with 9 steel balls. Instead, it was a single-headed bullet with stronger lethality and longer range. This is a special bullet specially customized for vampires. The tip of the bullet is made of mithril, while the lower part is made of ordinary bullet material. But the power of such a bullet should not be underestimated. Although all vampires wore protective clothing that could withstand bullets from ordinary rifles. But the bullets used by Blade were specially polished to be very sharp at the warhead part, and the caliber of the shotgun itself was very large. The ammunition could be loaded with a lot of primers, and the power of the single-headed bullet was completely different from that of ordinary shotguns. Blade used the Vulcan cannon as a cover and fired 6 shots at the vampire crowd. 3 vampires were directly shot into ashes, and 3 vampires just lost their combat effectiveness because they did not hit the vital parts. The injuries caused by mithril are difficult to recover. At least before the end of this battle, these 3 vampires are no longer useful. Use heavy machine guns. Quinn roared, and immediately a vampire ran to the intact armored vehicle of the SWAT team and began to operate the M2 heavy machine gun to suppress Blade again. The firepower of an M2 is already very strong, and now Blade is beaten and can't raise his head again. The number of vampires present is really a bit too much, and their combat level is really too fierce. Damon was hiding behind the low wall on the rooftop, holding a sniper rifle to provide fire support to Spider-Man. Just after Spider-Man fell, several vampires rushed up to kill him. Fortunately, Damon's shooting skills were very accurate. He killed several vampires before Peter had time to adjust to his state. "Nightwalker, where are you?" Damon shouted to Luigi through the headset. "I'm here." Luigi finally arrived here before the vampire escaped. He was now standing on the street under the viaduct, which was 22 meters high from the road surface of the viaduct. Luigi took out 2 bright silver things that looked like very thick armor from his combat belt. This was exactly the equipment he commissioned Peter to make these days. The 2 armors were easily buckled on his forearms. Luigi directly turned on the button of this equipment through the internal switch. The 2 thick armors began to split and deform continuously, and pieces of armor and internal structural devices began to extend on Luigi's arms. It expanded from the forearm part, downward to the palm, and upward to the upper arm part. In 3 seconds, Luigi's arms from the shoulders to the palms were covered with a layer of silver-white armor. The blueprint was exchanged by Luigi, the manufacturing was completed by Peter, and the special titanium alloy armor was provided by Frank. After Peter finished manufacturing, Luigi exchanged 4 micronuclear power batteries as the energy source of the armor. Although the last Blood Farm incident was not completely exposed, it also brought Luigi 5,000 points of reputation. Adding the remaining 500 points of reputation, Luigi still has a total of 5,500 points of reputation. AD-level micronuclear battery costs 500 points of reputation. Luigi spent a total of 2,000 points of reputation to buy the battery as a power source. Peter also made some minor modifications to this armor, which is not completely dependent on the blueprint. For example, a set of spider silk generating devices built in, which is Peter's original creation. However, this also delayed the progress of manufacturing. With complete blueprints and materials, Peter still spent nearly 20 days to manufacture 2 such armors. Luigi fired a spider silk directly at the top of the viaduct. Through the power device built into the armor, it directly pulled Luigi to fly towards the battlefield of the viaduct. Luigi flew directly into the center of the vampire crowd, and the 2 vampires closest to Luigi were directly affected. Without drawing the mithril long knife, Luigi directly stretched out his hands and clasped the heads of the 2 vampires. The tops of his 10 fingers emitted a dazzling purple light, and the strong ultraviolet rays directly burned the heads of the 2 vampires into charcoal, and then the whole body turned into ash. Now the blade is blocking the side of the vampire container truck, while Spider-Man controls the side where the vampire is coming from. In the distance, there is a sniper who is holding back the Big Daddy, and the Nightwalker Luigi has already killed into the center of the vampire. Quinn now feels that this operation may not be so simple. Chapter 91 Prophecy. Director, our people are ready and can go out to provide support at any time. In the SHIELD building, Agent Hill was reporting to SHIELD Director Nick Fury. Support? Support what? Nick leaned back in his office chair and had no intention of getting up. The SWAT team was ambushed and the lockbox will be stolen. Hill didn't understand why Nick was so calm today and didn't want to take care of these things at all. Although the things have been handed over, SHIELD no longer needs to be responsible for the loss of the things in terms of procedures, but Nick's performance is still too unexpected. I said we don't need to worry about this. Nick picked up a cigar from the desk and said indifferently, do you have anything else to do? Agent Hill? If not, I think you can go out first. Nick lit the cigar and Hill looked at Nick Fury and wanted to say something, but in the end he left the office without saying a word. Nick Fury was smoking a cigar and suddenly thought of Frank and the two little guys who followed Frank. He should remind that guy not to cause trouble today. Everyone has his own destiny line. Some are as simple and clear as a nylon rope. In a high-end apartment building on Manhattan Island, Roland, a schoolmate of Li Ji who had met once, was looking at the scenery outside the window and muttering to himself. Some are as confusing and obscure as a hemp rope. At this moment, Roland's eyes showed an indescribable color, which seemed to be a dark purple, but seemed to have a little red light. If you look closely, you will feel that her eyes are very deep. If you can stand into perspective and observe the world, you can see that the whole city is covered with countless golden and blue lines. They are intertwined with each other. The blue lines represent the past, and the golden lines represent the future. The blue lines that have become history are densely intertwined. They come from all over the world and finally converge over China, the United States, and the United Kingdom. Finally, three huge blue chains are formed and intertwined together. The three huge blue chains are like the locks that protect the opening and closing of the suitcase, tightly guarding the outer space of the earth. The golden lines represent the future that has not yet happened. These lines emerge from every person and even every living individual. The golden lines fly neatly and orderly into the sky, forming a golden core within the three huge blue chains. Although the golden lines look neat and uniform, they cover the entire Earth's atmosphere layer by layer. But they are very thin and fragile. This represents the uncontrollability and changeability of the future. No matter who they are, their future is a golden line. The only difference is the thickness of this golden line and whether there will be other intersecting golden lines. Until that day when Roland saw Li Ji, Roland rarely took the initiative to use his ability to see the lines between the past and the future. Because any intervention in time will have unpredictable consequences, Roland has proved this with the lives of his relatives. But Li Ji is too special. After more than 2 years in the same school, Roland has never found anything different about this boy. Until that inconspicuous encounter that day, the dense and repetitive golden lines that looked like a spider web shocked her. Her curiosity drove her to try to touch those dense and maze-like golden lines. But reason told her that any slight contact would trap her soul in a future maze that she could never escape from, making it impossible for her to escape. Roland stood at the window and touched her finger slightly. A golden line far away suddenly appeared in front of her. She could no longer see the whites of her eyes. That indescribable color filled her entire eyeball. Just looking at this golden line for less than 5 seconds, her eyes began to bleed, and the bright red blood kept sliding down from the corners of her eyes like uncontrollable tears. But she did not stop what she was doing, and 10 seconds passed. This golden line suddenly emitted an invisible vibration, and the turbulence of time instantly hit Roland's petite body. Roland hit the door of her room hard, and the huge momentum made her directly smash the door and fly into the living room. Without Roland's restraint, the golden thread of the future quickly returned to its original place and hid in the vast sea of golden threads. Oh my God, Roland! What's wrong with you? A woman who was watching TV in the living room rushed up anxiously and hugged Roland. Seeing Roland with bleeding eyes, she cried anxiously. Oh God, Roland, you did this again. You stupid kid don't need to do these things. The woman cried while hugging Roland. Quien. Quien. Hearing her shouting and the noise Roland made just now, a man ran over from the next room. When he saw the scene, he immediately understood what was going on. He immediately went to his bedroom and opened a safe, and took out a pill that was individually wrapped like amethyst. Silly girl, Roland, you are such a silly girl. The man blamed and pried open Roland's mouth so that Roland could swallow the pill. Roland seemed to be much better after swallowing the pill. His eyes returned to normal and he was no longer bleeding. Promise me, don't do this again, okay? The woman cried while holding Roland's head in pain. Okay, Shava, but your hug makes me a little breathless. Roland said calmly, and even made a little joke, as if the danger he was in just now was insignificant. Shava let go of Roland, but there was still deep worry in her eyes. You can tell Juno that the vampire empire will collapse from today, and there is no possibility of recovery. But I also need to remind you that there is a vampire named Deacon Fiss who will cause big trouble in the future, but I can't tell whether it is because of his death that the trouble is caused, or because he is alive. Roland still calmly recounted what she had just seen. But she still concealed some things, such as the boy she saw that day, who seemed to play an unusual role in all the events. Chapter 92 Mixed Blood. On the viaduct in Queens, Luigi, whose arms were covered with mechanical armor, had already entered the core area of the vampires. This parallel armor, which not only has protective capabilities but can also serve as a mechanical exoskeleton for the arms, is not just protective. With the energy supply of micronuclear batteries, Luigi's arms are now extremely powerful. After practicing the level Tenjiano Gong to the perfect level, Luigi's strength has only increased to 480 kilograms. The Vajra indestructible body divine art itself does not increase the strength, but only improves the defense of the body. Although the newly practiced Arithathagata seal is of a higher level and has a stronger internal energy, it is not specifically used to increase strength. A considerable part of its ability is used to improve spiritual cultivation. Therefore, Luigi's current maximum strength is only around 550 kilograms. Compared with the current Spider-Man's strength of more than 1 ton, this strength is not much. However, with the help of this pair of mechanical armor, Luigi's strength instantly soared. A pair of iron palms can directly penetrate the thick defensive clothing on the vampire, and then shoot strong ultraviolet rays from the fingers to kill the vampire instantly. Luigi also tried to directly transmit the internal energy of the Great Tathagata seal to the outer armor of his palm through the mechanical arm. The outer armor of his palm, which was filled with internal energy, directly hit the head of a vampire, and like a smashed watermelon, bright red blood mixed with grayish-white brain matter splashed out directly. The internal energy was transmitted into the body of the vampire through the armor, and the vampire was burned into a pool of ashes in an instant, just like the sun melting ice. Unlike the vampires killed by Mithril, which turned into black ashes, the ashes of the vampires killed by the internal energy of the Great Tathagata seal turned into grayish-white. It looks like it burned more thoroughly and cleanly. Luigi verified that the Great Tathagata seal did indeed restrain evil creatures, as the system said. But now he is not going to use the internal energy of the Great Tathagata seal to kill vampires all the time. After all, there are simpler equipment, and it is stupid to spend a lot of effort to use a more difficult fighting method. Now, because of Luigi's breakthrough at the center point, the entire vampire formation has become scattered. Assault rifles are not very useful at close range, because the muzzle rotation speed is not as fast as that of submachine guns and pistols, especially Luigi's speed is very fast. The muzzle rotation of many vampires can't keep up with Luigi's speed. Because of the internal disarray, even the formation of vampires who were suppressing Blade and Damon from the outside was a bit messy, and the suppression of firepower was not as strong as before. Damon seized the opportunity and shot the vampire who was controlling the heavy machine gun to suppress Blade with one shot on the roof. Without the suppression of heavy machine guns, Blade can finally show up, and his shotgun has been thirsty for a long time. The loaded shotgun fired 7 rounds in a row, instantly sending several vampires to hell, and shining red light and charred ashes continued to appear in the crowd of vampires. On Peter's side, several vampires in the car had broken free from the control of the spider silk and took out their guns to shoot Peter. Peter was injured in the thigh muscle by the fragments of the grenade before, so he was not very mobile and could only use spider silk to dodge. Spider-Man quickly closed the distance with several vampires, came directly in front of them and grabbed a vampire as a weapon. Peter's strength is now very considerable. He easily knocked several vampires back to Quinn's side by carrying a vampire as if he was carrying a rag doll. The current situation is beginning to be unfavorable to Quinn. The longer the time is delayed, the greater the chance of problems. The government's support is likely on the way. At this time, someone needs to stand up to turn the situation around. Every population has no shortage of heroes willing to sacrifice for their own race, whether human or vampire. At this time, a vampire who is not very strong but very handsome stood up. His name is Freddy. A mixed-blood vampire. To be complete, he should be a very miserable vampire. He was transformed by a perverted pure-blooded vampire who loved boys in his childhood. Having gone through a childhood that he couldn't bear to look back on, Freddy had been working under this old pervert because the mixed-blood vampire couldn't disobey the orders of his first embracer. Because of his handsome appearance, Freddy became a money-making tool for this old pervert. He not only played with Freddy himself, but also made Freddy his money-making tool. He was thrown into a nightclub and asked to serve other rich pure-blood vampires. Here he explained a female vampire who had the same experience. She was also transformed into a vampire in childhood and was also controlled by a perverted pure-blood vampire. The two injured people snuggled together for warmth. Even vampires are creatures with emotions, not monsters that only know how to kill. They also have fear, hatred, likes, and love. They have all the emotions that humans have, whether they are good or bad. Freddy and the girl fell in love, but this kind of emotion is a luxury for vampires, especially low-status vampires. The girl was given to another pure-blood vampire as a plaything by a perverted pure-blood vampire. When Freddy saw the girl again, she was already insane, which was not something that the vampire's healing ability could restore. Freddy didn't know what happened to the girl when she was sent away, but he knew that the scene when he saw the girl again broke his heart. He secretly got garlic essence and poured it into the girl's throat with tears. The garlic essence instantly melted the girl's internal organs. Vampires could not heal the wounds caused by mithril, nor could they heal the wounds caused by garlic essence. The girl was stunned and did not struggle, allowing her life to end like this. Freddy killed his beloved girl and cried. But he couldn't stay sad for too long. He picked up the necklace pendant he had given to the girl. Now the necklace is still on the girl's chest. There is a photo of him and the girl in the locket box. When he opened the locket box, the photo inside had rotted. Judging from the white salt left on the photo, these were the tears shed by the girl when she looked at the photo. I don't know how many tears the girl shed at the photo. Perhaps the girl's tears had not stopped since the day they separated, until she had no ability to cry. She stopped crying. Freddy began to run away from that day. He did not dare to let his first embrace find out what he had done. Because the girl was the property of this old pervert, Freddy vowed to take revenge on this old pervert. This is the portrayal of the life of the lowest level half-blood vampires. Under the strict hierarchy, they are firmly controlled by their first embraces. Unless the first embrace dies or falls into deep sleep, they cannot gain true freedom. Freddy's desperate journey lasted for several years until he met Deacon Faith, the leader of the half-blood vampires. Deacon Faith's first embracer is very special. He is not an ordinary pure-blood, but Dracula, the ancestor of all vampires. So his status in the vampire empire is actually very high, but because he is not a direct descendant of Dracula, but a half-blood who was transformed into a vampire. Those pure-bloods didn't particularly buy into his account. All pure-blood vampires trace their ancestors back to Dracula. Their relationship with Deacon was like that between a legitimate son and an illegitimate son. Deacon was the leader of the mixed-blood vampires. He was committed to reforming this old empire, this empire that exuded a rotten smell all over its body, this empire that was crumbling in the wind and rain, and this empire that was still stubborn in the general trend of history, even resorting to violence. Deacon Faith united most of the mixed-blood vampires, even the vampires who were forced to be the first embracers and could not follow him supported him secretly. When the old pervert was sunbathed in front of Freddy, Freddy had already decided to dedicate his entire life to the great cause of Deacon Faith. He didn't want the tragedy of him and the girl to repeat itself. He hoped that other mixed-blood vampires would have a happy life. They wanted to overthrow the exploiters who oppressed them. Freddy would not hesitate even if he had to sacrifice his life for this. The whole meaning of his entire life was to fight for the rise of mixed-blood vampires. Looking at Luigi who was slaughtering his compatriots, Freddy suddenly rushed towards him. Chapter 93 Chess Pieces. After many battles, Luigi had a good intuition about fighting. Although Freddy rushed from the side, Luigi had already shot a strong ultraviolet beam at Freddy's brain. 5 meters away, Freddy was hit by ultraviolet rays on half of his head, and his body began to emit red light. Death was calling him. But he smiled, and at the last moment before his vocal cords turned into ashes, he shouted the last words of his life, "Long live Deacon Faith!" His weird smile gave Luigi a very bad premonition. He immediately retreated. Just as Freddy's body turned into ashes, his body exploded violently. The vampires who came to participate in this operation were determined to die. They specially formed a group of death squads and tied nearly 5 pounds, about 2.25 kilograms, of explosives on their bodies. 5 pounds of TNT, if scattered and buried on the supporting columns of a 6-story building, would be enough to completely collapse the building. Because the power was too great, once the explosion occurred, it would also affect their own people. The vampires near the explosion would lose their combat effectiveness due to the explosion, so the death squads and the vampires did not take action before. Luigi used the armor on his hands to protect the vital parts of his body, and the whole person hugged himself and was blown away by the shock wave formed by the explosion. Fortunately, Li Ji had exchanged for the Vajra indestructible body divine art before, otherwise this powerful shock wave would have killed him even if the armor protected the vital parts. The powerful explosion directly blew Li Ji dozens of meters away from the viaduct and fell directly from a height of 22 meters. In the moment before landing, Li Ji fired a spider silk to pull himself up for a while before falling to the ground. The shock wave of this explosion made all the bones in his body feel loose, and he felt like vomiting blood in his chest but couldn't. Nightwalker, Spider-Man, did you hear that? Li Ji's headphones were not damaged in the explosion this time, and Frank's voice came from the headphones. Received, please reply. Nightwalker, are you alive? Are you alive? I heard your reply. Peter ignored Frank's call and called Li Ji anxiously. He was now entangled by many vampires and could not come to see Li Ji's situation. I saw him move a little. Nightwalker should still be alive. Damon, the Big Daddy, saw Li Ji struggling to get up from the ground through the scope. Ugly Ji stood up and couldn't help spitting out blood. Only then did he feel much better in his chest. He tried to circulate his internal energy to dispel the blood stasis in his chest. Li Ji had time to answer. Fortunately, I'm still alive. They have a self-destructing person. Li Ji took a breath and replied. He stretched out his arm and aimed at the road surface of the viaduct, ready to shoot a spider silk to fight on it. Frank, when can you arrive? This group of vampires is very fierce, completely different from the ones we dealt with before. Frank was silent for a long time on the other end of the headset before slowly speaking in a low voice. Retreat. What? Li Ji and the other three on this end of the headset couldn't believe their ears. Retreat. This is Nick Fury's trap. The things in the escort vehicle are for the vampires to steal. Frank's voice was filled with an unknown anger. Li Ji was already sluggish. The spider silk had already been fired, but he forgot to activate the stretching switch to send him to the viaduct. Damon, the Big Daddy who had been hiding on the top of the tall building and had been a sniper, retreated directly to the protection range of the low wall and stopped shooting. He walked around the wall twice. Suddenly he picked up the L-115A3 sniper rifle and smashed it against the wall with the barrel. Driven by anger, Damon only used a few shots to smash this expensive top-level sniper rifle worth $45,000 into scrap metal. Peter, who was still on the bridge, shouted angrily and repelled several vampires and never fought with them again. He used the spider silk to quickly swing towards the direction where Li Ji had just landed. There was only one blade warrior left on the scene. Under the powerful firepower, he could only shrink back behind the Vulcan cannon again. Quinn's goal now is just to steal the password box. He has no time to care about Blade because too much time has been spent. Let's go. Quinn, who got the password box, called on all the vampires to evacuate the place. He thought that the explosion just now had killed Li Ji, so the Spider-Man in the red and blue tights and the guy who was harassing on the roof retreated. He did not realize that everything he and his men did today was just a trap planned by others, and all the efforts and sacrifices were in vain. When Li Ji recovered, he was already standing on the road surface of the viaduct. He didn't know why he had to come here. The road surface of the viaduct has been devastated, especially the last explosion directly collapsed a large piece of the road surface. The only pieces of flesh left by the SWAT team members could not even be put together into a complete body. Li Ji looked at a bulletproof vest with the word SWAT printed on it, and suddenly felt very calm in his heart. Perhaps the original owner of this vest was a brave and combative soldier. He may have fought wits and courage with various criminals countless times. He may have saved many lives and protected the safety of many people. He may still be someone else's son, his wife's husband, and the father of his children. They may be deeply proud of this man because he is a hero who saved others. Maybe it is his destiny to return to the battlefield and sacrifice himself to protect the lives of others, but everything that happened today seems so meaningless. This is just a trap, and the robbery of the password box was originally planned. Why did he fight so hard? Oh, by the way, he didn't know about this plan. He is just a poor pawn who is used and discarded. No matter how much he has paid for this country and this society before, when he needs to be abandoned, the big guys will always ruthlessly abandon them. Maybe the price is just a copper bravery badge worth 18 yuan produced in China. The Pentagon has already ordered a lot of this thing, and the Chinese manufacturer can already deliver it directly to the Pentagon free of charge. Of course, There is also a sad letter of condolence to illustrate the bravery of this soldier before his death, and a pension. This is all that needs to be paid. For the big guys, the price is not unacceptable. Anyway, the money belongs to the taxpayers, and the list of casualties is just a number. It is not a loss for those who are high up. If the plan succeeds, it will be a highlight in their careers. As for the sacrifice behind, please, this is necessary, okay? What is there to pursue? Liji thought of the lizard warriors out again. He once said that when you lose your value, you will be abandoned by the world. Maybe he is right. Oh, and the vampire who shouted "Long live Deacon Faith," think about their sacrifice. It is really not worth it. Hello, my name is Blade. I thought you were dead just now. Blade, wearing a black windbreaker, walked up to Liji and said hello. You can call me Nightwalker. Fortunately, I am not dead, otherwise it would be too meaningless. I still have a lot of things to do. Liji said with a forced smile. Oh, man, you almost scared me to death just now. Peter also came to Liji and patted his chest and said, Are you Spider-Man? I saw you on the website of the Nightwalker Alliance. Blade also greeted Peter and said, Oh, hello, your name is Blade, right? Peter replied. Actually, you could have continued to hold back those vampires. If the sniper on the opposite building continued to shoot, we could have waited for Nightwalker to come back and keep those vampires. Blade seemed upset about not being able to keep Quinn and his party. There's no need to keep them. Liji glanced at the messy, bloody scene and said silently. What? Why is there no need to keep them? I've been hunting vampires for a long time. The abnormal behavior of the vampires this time shows that the things transported by this convoy are very important. Blade asked, not knowing that this was a trap. Why? Because this is a damn trap. I almost lost my life here tonight, but you told me this is a damn trap. Liji became furious as he spoke. Liji, who was still wearing mechanical armor, punched the only armored vehicle that was still intact. With anger mixed with internal strength and the bonus of mechanical armor, Liji's punch actually made a dent in the hard armor surface, and cracks appeared on the surface. Hey, calm down. Calm down. Peter comforted him. A low groan came from the side of the armored vehicle. It was Mike, the commander of the team. He was covered in blood and scratched by stray bullets, but fortunately he was not dead. Oh God, this guy is still alive. We must save him. Peter hurried over to check. He was bitten by a vampire, but I have a way that may be able to save him. Blade also stepped forward to check Mike's wound and said, Where is your car? Liji picked Mike up and asked directly. At least today, no one can die meaninglessly. I had originally planned to post it in 2 days, but I felt that this section must be read in one go, otherwise it would not be smooth, so I posted it all at once. Please recommend and collect it. In addition, the story of the vampire is about to end, and it is about to enter a new chapter, thanks to book friends, Dad and Guoshi I Wake Up to Me Batista 01 Little Suno and others for their rewards. Thank you very much. In addition, the book friend group is recruiting people to post water. 539,763,655. Chapter 94 Special People. In a car repair shop in Brooklyn, Liji took the injured Mike out of the car and placed him on a platform. Peter also followed Blade's car all the way to the car repair shop, and Damon, the big daddy, was in a bad mood and had gone home to accompany Mindy. In fact, Liji was in a bad mood now. Everything he did tonight made him feel that all his actions were meaningless. He was like a clown who wanted to make the king happy, and he tried his best to show off his abilities. In the end, the king told him that he was in a bad mood today and didn't want to watch the clown show. He almost died tonight. This feeling made him feel embarrassed and angry, and he felt that he was in a terrible mood. If possible, he actually wanted to take off this damn hero coat and go home to play games and go to bed. But seeing that Mike was not dead yet, Liji thought he should save this guy first, because this guy was much more miserable than himself. As a pawn abandoned by the upper class, he was still kept in the dark. He worked hard to complete his mission, but now he was still on the verge of life and death. There was not even a complete body left for his people. They were all turned into pieces of meat on the roadside. When they were buried, there was not even a face to be seen. Peter informed Frank where everyone was now and asked him to come over. What happened today made everyone feel depressed, even Peter was no exception. Whist, whist! Blade shouted to the depths of the garage. An old man who was not very convenient to walk came out, What did you bring again? The old man had white hair and was not easy to move, but the lines on his face were very hard, giving people a strong feeling. Are these your new friends? Whist looked at Peter and Lee Ji and said. Yes, Whist, this is Nightcrawler and Spider-Man. I showed you their videos before. Blade introduced. This is Whist, my partner, an old guy who specializes in hunting vampires. Although my legs and feet are not very good, I can still beat you, Blade. Whist was unhappy that Blade called him an old guy. It seems that this guy is really lucky. He was scratched by stray bullets in many places, but no vital parts or blood vessels were hit. Whist began to check the injured Mike. He had treated Blade's wounds for many years and had good experience in trauma treatment. Well, it looks like another guy who was bitten by a vampire. The vampire virus hasn't killed him yet? What a strong guy. Whist looked at Mike's bitten neck and said. I'm here. Where are you, Spider-Man Nightwalker? While Whist was bandaging Mike's wounds to prevent him from bleeding to death, Frank's voice came from the headset of the two people. Frank had arrived here. Peter greeted Lee Ji and brought Frank in. Hi Blade, this is our big boss Frank. Frank, this is Blade, a hunter who specializes in hunting vampires. Peter introduced the two. I've heard of you, the legendary Daywalker. Frank obviously knew Blade. After all, Frank had dealt with vampires for many years. And Blade is very famous in the world of vampires. The two nodded to each other, and Frank looked at Lee Ji with some concern and said, I heard that you were attacked by a bomb on the viaduct? I think you'd better go for an MRI. Thank you, but I don't think there's anything wrong. Lee Ji's voice now seemed a little dry, but what he said was true, because he didn't feel any blockages when he used his internal energy to circulate in his internal organs. Nightwalker, you should do it once. The bomb has collapsed a section of the bridge. Peter also thought that Frank was right. Okay, I'll go to the hospital when I have time. The two people's persuasion made Lee Ji embarrassed to keep rejecting their kindness. Frank, what's the matter with you saying this is a trap today? Lee Ji asked about the thing that made him feel most uncomfortable today. Remember the parchment scroll in the small box we seized in the warehouse last time? Frank said. That's the Vampire Bible. This time, the SWAT team is escorting this Vampire Bible. Lee Ji suddenly recalled the plot of Blade Runner that he had watched in his previous life. It seemed that the villain in the movie cracked the Vampire Bible and summoned a very weak thing to possess himself. Then he was stabbed to death by Blade Runner with several needles. Well, anyway, it was very brainless. By the way, is the villain called Deacon Firth? Lee Ji couldn't remember it clearly. After all, the movie was watched many years ago, and the timeline before he crossed over was an old movie that he had watched nearly 7 or 8 years ago. Not to mention that it has been more than 17 years since he crossed over to this world. Except for very general things, other details have long been forgotten. Here, Lee Ji admires those travelers who can still remember every detail in the original book after more than 20 years of crossing over. They can also completely disassemble the meaning of every action of the villain. Their memory and analytical ability are so outstanding. Why are they so messed up on the original Earth? Anyway, Lee Ji didn't dare to judge whether this Vampire Bible was used to summon that extremely weak thing like in the original book. After all, in his vague memory, the vampires in the original book were as weak as they could be, and as mentally retarded as they could be. The performance of those vampires was exactly like a group of guys whose brains were eaten by zombies. The performance of the vampires in this world was at least to the level of normal people in terms of IQ, and their brains were at least not eaten by zombies. And their strength was obviously much stronger than in the movie, so he didn't dare to make a rash conclusion. Yes, it's the Vampire Bible. Frank said. This Bible is the bait to lure vampires into it. This is a trap set by SHIELD and the Security Council. So that Bible is fake. Blade suddenly interrupted and asked. No, it's real. Frank's answer surprised everyone present, including Whist, who was treating Mike's wound, and stopped his work and looked over. What the hell is SHIELD doing? Lee Ji felt even more unhappy now. Don't excite the Nightwalker. Frank consoled Lee Ji and said. We did seize the Bible from the warehouse, but the Bible they traded was fake in the first place. What? Peter and Lee Ji were confused, and now both of them had a black question mark on their faces. It's obvious that the Redwater security company behind this tricked the vampires. Frank took out a cigar from his pocket and lit it up and said. It's also possible that the Redwater security company thought it was real, At least it seems that the vampires didn't find out it was fake. Frank took a puff of the cigar. Does this mean that there is a 50% chance that the Redwater Security Company is cheating the vampires? Why? Lee G asked. And how did S.H.I.E.L.D. find out that the Bible was fake? After all, even the vampires themselves didn't find out. It's not clear why the Redwater Security Company did this, and as for how S.H.I.E.L.D. found out it was fake. Sorry, I don't know either. Frank took another puff of the cigar after he finished speaking. Is this guy a survivor? Frank asked after looking at Mike, who was covered in scars. Yes, all the other SWAT team members died because of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s ingenuity. Lee G's tone was a little cold. You can't even piece together a complete corpse. Frank looked back at Lee G, wanting to say something but finally didn't speak. Okay, the external injuries have been treated, but whether this guy can survive depends on his luck in the end. After all, he was bitten by a vampire and infected with a vampire virus. Wist had already stopped the bleeding and bandaged all of Mike's external injuries. He wiped the blood off his hands and said. At the same time, he took out a syringe from a small tray. Lee G was very familiar with the contents of the syringe. Frank prepared a lot of high-concentration garlic essence in the base. There are only two results after the blood is infected with a vampire virus. Either death, or there is a very small probability of being transformed into a vampire, but the proportion is very small. Wist expelled the air from the syringe. Before a person is completely transformed into a vampire, if garlic essence is injected, there is a certain chance that the vampire virus will be killed and the person will return to normal, but the ratio is very low. I have only saved one lady, and the others have died. Wist said, not quite sure. Whether this person can survive depends on God's will. Wist said as he was about to inject garlic essence into Mike's body. But before the needle pierced Mike's skin, he suddenly woke up and turned over to sit. Peter's reaction was the fastest. He just heard Wist's words and thought that Mike had already been transformed into a vampire at this time, so he directly sprayed a spider silk to tie Mike up. Wait. Wist stopped the blade that had been drawn out to purify Mike and said, oh my god, he was not transformed into a vampire. Thanks to the book friend, Batista01, 183 for the reward. If you like this book, please collect and recommend it. Your support is the author's greatest motivation. Chapter 95, A Crack That Is Hard to Heal. Mike felt like he had a horrible nightmare. He participated in a simple escort mission and was ambushed. After he and his team members resisted tenaciously, all the team members were killed. He finally wanted to delay time and wait for reinforcements, but he was also bitten to death. After that, he fell into darkness, just like a person who was swimming in the sea and finally drowned, constantly sliding into the depths of darkness. When he was about to slide into the abyss of darkness, suddenly a bright light pulled him back to reality. He turned over and sat up, gasping for breath. It was not until a while that he slowly recovered his spirit. He felt something tied him up, and he felt severe pain all over his body. Especially the neck part, it felt like it was burned by fire. It seems that this person is indeed not infected. This is the first time I have seen this situation. Frank looked at Mike and said. Mike did not grow vampire fangs, and his fingernails did not become sharp. Frank took out a mithril dagger and gently cut a small cut on his arm, and blood flowed out of the wound. Frank stretched out his bloody arm not far from Mike, holding the mithril dagger and keeping alert. As long as Mike showed a little bit of desire for blood, Frank would purify him. Who are you? Where is this? Mike didn't care about Frank's blood at all. Looking at his wounds, he knew that he was not dreaming. His team had been wiped out, and he almost died. Who were standing around him? A perverted transvestite in red and blue tights, a weirdo wearing a gray hood with armor on both arms, a black psychopath wearing sunglasses late at night, and a weird old man mumbling something. The only one who looked normal was a middle-aged white man in combat uniform, but his behavior was even weirder. He actually scratched his arm and bled. Was this a ritual of some cult? Could it be that his team was attacked by this group of psychopaths? Mike wanted to break free from Peter's spider silk control, but it was obvious that he was just an ordinary person and didn't have the strength to break free from these spider silks. Don't get excited, you're injured. If you use too much force, the wound will burst. Wist said on the side. Did you attack our convoy? What's your purpose in kidnapping me? Mike forced himself to calm down, because if you are trapped by the enemy, any anger is meaningless. Unless you can create an opportunity for you to escape. Look, It's not us who attacked your convoy, on the contrary, we saved you." Peter made a gesture to him to calm down and said, "It seems that Mike doesn't know them, including the most famous Spider-Man here, Peter Parker. Because Mike himself is a person who doesn't care much about these news, and he doesn't like to browse those messy information on the internet. He is a very serious and boring person in life. Every day is training, then carrying out tasks, eating and sleeping on time, and the only entertainment activity is playing chess with others. It is also this kind of focused and boring life that makes him a calm and outstanding commander, because he is never disturbed by the outside world, and will only concentrate on completing his tasks. Your convoy was attacked by vampires. Then we had a big fight with the vampires, and then the vampires ran away. We found that you were not dead, but you were bitten by vampires. You might become a vampire, so we brought you back for treatment instead of sending you to the hospital." Peter told this story in one breath. But this sentence made Mike's cheeks twitch uncontrollably, and he said in a hollow voice, "Do I look like an idiot?" No. Although you have a poker face, I can prove that you don't look like an idiot." Peter shrugged and replied. Luigi couldn't listen to their conversation anymore. He took out his mobile phone and flipped through the latest news. The attack in New York this time caused such a big commotion that even if the government wanted to cover it up, it couldn't. The sound of the M2 heavy machine gun, the whistling of the Vulcan cannon, and the last big explosion were enough to attract the attention of people nearby. Many people hid in their homes after hearing the gunshots and saw the battle from a distance. There were also photos and videos taken by citizens with telephoto cameras. Now the battle in New York has become the hottest topic in the city. Even if the government tries its best to delete posts on the website, it can't cover it up. After all, the blood and meat on the ground and the broken viaduct are all witnesses. Luigi found a video recorded by a citizen and handed the phone to Mike. "Take a look for yourself." Mike took the phone and watched the battle video recorded by the citizen, and found that what Peter said just now was true. Everyone is dead. Mike whispered after watching the video, revealing a kind of sadness in his tone. No one survived, not even a complete body. Luigi took back the phone, not knowing how to comfort Mike. "Are those vampires attacking us? Are those unkillable guys all vampires?" Mike suddenly asked. "Yes, they are all vampires. They attacked you because of the things you are escorting." Frank answered Mike's question. "Someone betrayed us. Someone leaked our route of action." Mike suddenly shouted loudly. If he hadn't been locked by Peter's spider silk, he might have stood up excitedly. "There are traitors in the government, and some are colluding with vampires. I want to find these guys. I want them to pay the price." Mike gnashed his teeth and roared. Luigi and the others looked at each other for a few times, not knowing how to tell Mike the truth. Maybe this information was leaked deliberately. His team was the bait thrown out as a pawn, and everyone tacitly did not say this. Maybe Mike could not bear this blow. "Okay, calm down, at least you are still alive." Whis tried to relax him as much as possible and said, "As long as people are alive, there's hope." Mike panted for a long time before he said calmly, "You are right, can you untie me first? I think I need to leave here now." Frank took out a sharp dagger and cut the spider silk that bound Mike and said, "I can untie you, but you can't leave here for the time being." "Why?" Mike asked after moving his hands. "You don't realize what happened to you now. You were bitten by a vampire, but you didn't turn into a vampire, and you didn't die." Frank said in a very serious tone. "This proves that there is a serum in your body that can inhibit the vampire virus and even reverse it. That's why I need to go back, if what you said is true. Then the government must research into vampire serum as soon as possible." Mike wanted to walk down the platform, but his injuries were a bit serious. Although he could sit up, he couldn't walk. He fell forward, but fortunately Luigi was beside him to support him. "I think it's better for your body to recover here first." Luigi pressed Mike to the bed and said, "There is one thing that Luigi and Frank didn't say. Because of tonight's incident, they have already disagreed with and distrusted the government's ideas. God knows what means the people who arranged this plan will have in the future. If they don't need Mike anymore, or even if Mike finds them when he is tracking down the so-called traitor, will they directly kill Mike?" Luigi narrowly escaped death tonight. He couldn't agree with the government's high-level behavior of betraying their own people. At least Luigi would not betray his companions and his team. As a veteran, Frank didn't want Mike to become a used and discarded garbage by the government, and finally become a person like the lizard warrior Zod. Mike, who was lying on the platform again, felt that he had become very weak. In fact, he was able to sit up and move just now because of his survival instinct. In addition, the death of his teammates promoted the secretion of adrenaline, which made him seem to be able to move. In fact, his current injuries were still very serious. Maybe I can only recuperate here for a while. Now even his voice was a little weak. I think the research on serum can be put on the agenda. Blade suddenly said. I saved a woman before. She is a hematologist. She was also bitten and suppressed the virus in her body with garlic essence. She has been working on the antidote for the vampire virus. Now there has been some progress. I think she can help. She is now in Buffalo. Li Ji felt inexplicably familiar with the woman that Blade was talking about. It seemed like the heroine in Blade. Then bring her to New York as soon as possible. Frank said. Maybe we can research the anti-vampire virus serum as soon as possible. Blade nodded to show that he understood. Well, since tonight is like this, I think I want to go home. Li Ji looked at Mike being taken care of by Frank and Wist, and he didn't want to stay here. He was in a terrible mood tonight. Hey, wait for me, I want to go back too. Peter was also in a terrible mood. He wanted to go home a long time ago, just like Big Daddy went home to be with Mindy. He also wanted to go back to his little nest to find some warmth and comfort his hurt heart today. Nightwalker, what are you going to do when you go home? Go to sleep. Peter and Li Ji walked out of the repair shop shoulder to shoulder and asked, maybe we should play 2 games first. I feel like killing people right now, especially the bastards from S.H.I.E.L.D. Oh, okay. Actually, I want to beat those guys up, too. What games do you play? World of Warcraft. Wow, you never told me that I also play World of Warcraft. Because I just started playing it, less than a week. Oh, I can take you to the dungeon. I've been playing it for several years. What's the name of your game? KKFJ, my game name. I'll find you when I go back online. Come to Stormwind. I'm in Thunderbluff. Wait? Are you a tribal pig? So what do you want to do? Alliance dog. The two of them disappeared into the night while playing around. Everything that happened today has caused an unhealable rift between Li Ji and his team, the government, and S.H.I.E.L.D. Thanks to the bug friend, Moling 183 Mo, you reject the Unreal starting point coin reward. Thank you. Oh. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96 Video Games and Strange Mail. A terrorist attack occurred on the streets of New York. A SWAT team was ambushed and 3 armored vehicles were destroyed. No survivors have been found yet. ABC Cable News Network, USA. Terrorist organization is attacking. The whole city of New York is on alert. CNN News Channel. Blood and flesh are flying on the battlefield in New York. AFP News Report. Night hero? Or a terrorist devil? British BBC Radio. Firefight on the streets of New York. Terrorists used Vulcan cannons. At least thousands of bullets were exchanged on the scene. No organization has claimed responsibility for the incident yet. Xinhuanit, China. Spider-Man is a pest on the streets of New York. Nightcrawler is a destroyer of peaceful society. The Daily Bugle. The Battle of the Viaduct on September 21st shocked the whole United States. The streets of New York turned into a cruel battlefield in an instant. This caused a sensation not only in New York, but also in the world. The global news media focused their attention on New York City, and the gunfight scenes shot by many citizens were also reposted crazily on the internet. The discussion about Spider-Man, Nightcrawler and Blade Warrior on the internet has not stopped. Some people think they are saving the SWAT team, while others are influenced by reports like the Daily Bugle and think they are actually related to terrorists. However, Li Ji's reputation is also rising rapidly, but in addition to the reputation provided by New York citizens, there are many foreign news viewers in other regions who watch this report more just to watch the fun, and the reputation they provide is not too much. It seems that the previous speculation is really correct. The reputation is related to the degree of relevance of this matter to oneself. If the incident itself is less related to this person, the reputation that can be provided is also less. Moreover, because Blade and Spider-Man arrived at the scene earlier than Li Ji, except for Damon, the Big Daddy who did not show up, The two of them also seriously diluted the reputation that Li Ji obtained. However, even so, Li Ji's reputation is also soaring wildly. After all, the number of people who know about this matter is so large. Li Ji and Peter are actually in no mood to care about the follow-up of the vampire matter now, because the two of them, even Damon and Frank, are disgusted by S.H.I.E.L.D. As for how the government whitewashes the vampires and lets them get out of this matter so that their plan can continue to be implemented, it is not something that Li Ji and his team can control. Anyway, when Li Ji saw the White House spokesperson, a blonde white man, appear on TV and was about to explain the incident, he directly switched the TV to the signal input mode. Today is a weekend, and Li Ji and Peter are both in a bad mood these days. Even Peter has no desire to go to the streets to fight criminals. The two of them just stayed in the base to play games. Anyway, this base was originally built as a nuclear defense facility, and the sound insulation effect is very good. The two of them played the game consoles and turned up the volume without worrying about complaints from neighbors. It seems that they don't have any neighbors. As for Damon, he was regretting his impulsiveness on September 21st. Because of anger, he broke the L115A3 sniper rifle worth $45,000. In the past few days, he has locked it in the equipment warehouse to see if he can repair it. Impulse is the devil, just like some people in Li Ji's previous life, who would chop their hands crazily one day, and pick up a kitchen knife to chop their hands again when they wake up the next day. As for Frank, he has been hanging out with Blade these days, and he also takes care of Mike and Blade's car repair shop. As for the female hematologist from Buffalo, she has also arrived, and she is drawing Mike's blood for experiments with her own equipment. Oh, Nightcrawler, pass the ball quickly, I'm going to do a whirlwind attack. Spider-Man Peter Parker was holding the game controller and howling excitedly. His excited voice could be heard throughout the base. We'll be there soon, wait in front of the opponent's penalty area. Li Ji was also holding the game controller and playing games with Peter. These days, Li Ji took the time to buy a PS4, and also bought a 42-inch LCD TV made in China and put it in the base. Although buying a Sony TV to play PS4 will have a faith bonus, making your game smoother, wrong, making you more accurate in shooting games, big mistake, and making you super god in the game, big mistake. But Sony TVs are too expensive after all. A 42-inch LCD TV made in China only costs $300, which is not as expensive as a PS4. Anyway, everyone is not in the mood now, and doesn't want to go out and be a superhero, so it's better to shrink in the base and play games. Li Ji and Peter are now playing the cooperative game Rocket League. The two people shouting and yelling are giving Damon a headache, so he can only close the door of the equipment library. Mindy, who has been writing and drawing on the table, finally can't stand these two childish ghosts. Mindy stood in front of the two with an angry face and said, "Can you be more mature? You are so old and still playing such childish games, and you are shouting and yelling like this, affecting others." Li Ji and Peter stared at Mindy with wide eyes. The atmosphere was a little silent. Suddenly, the sound effect of the opponent's goal came from the TV. Oh damn, there is no time, Spider-Man. Launch a counterattack quickly. If we lose, our ranking will be lowered in the standings. Li Ji reacted immediately. This is not the time to play the staring game with Mindy. Now is the qualifying match. Right away, Nightwalker, look at my tornado scoring. Spider-Man also came back to his senses and picked up the handle to operate. Mindy couldn't help but cover her cute little face with her little hands. Before she knew them, she thought they were cool and handsome superheroes like in the comics just by watching the promotional videos on the website. After really knowing these two guys, Hit Girl's worldview was shattered. Nightcrawler and Spider-Man are not cool at all. They are just two funny guys. They stay in the base all day long to play games and watch movies, or tell jokes. Thinking of Peter's jokes, Mindy couldn't help but shudder. Well, there is a saying in this world that if you can't change them, you might as well join them. Since they made her work impossible, Mindy simply joined the two to play Rocket League. Spider-Man, you idiot. Pass the ball to me. Little Mindy made a loud voice that was seriously inconsistent with her body. Damon, who needed to be quiet in the equipment warehouse to repair the gun, heard his daughter's roar. He silently put on the noise-isolating earplugs. Now Damon strongly felt that joining Nightcrawler's team was a serious mistake. The three of them wasted the good time of Saturday afternoon playing PS4 until their hands were sore. Mindy, What were you doing just now? Li Ji went to the refrigerator and took a few bottles of drinks. I saw you drawing on the table just now? Is that right? Oh, yes. Mindy picked up a bottle of orange juice and took a sip. The girl's throat was dry and smoking after shouting all afternoon. I think we should design a team logo and a team name. Cool, good idea. Peter also took a sip of the drink and agreed. We are a team and we should have a unified team name and logo. Let me see your design. Li Ji had never thought of this before. After all, the team was not formed for a long time, and everyone was busy after the team was formed, busy putting out fires everywhere in New York City. It was not until these few days that everyone had free time after completely letting go of the vampires. The two came to the table and took a look at Mindy's let's call it a design. Mindy, I think you still need to refine your design. Li Ji said as euphemistically as possible. I know, you can laugh if you want. This is just a rough draft. Mindy, such a smart child, already knew what Li Ji meant. Hey, Mindy, I think it's actually pretty good, but sometimes we need to learn from more mature designs. Peter patted Hot Girl's shoulder and said. For example, the recently published superhero comic Hyperion, Man of Steel, we can use it as a reference first. Peter turned on the computer and prepared to search for pictures about this comic. What the Spider-Man inexplicably found a new email address after turning on the computer. Peter Parker has been using various zombies and virtual machines to block the real address. Who found this address? Peter couldn't help but want to swear, but because there was a little girl who was only 12 years old beside him, the last word of the swear word was mysteriously harmonized. Nightwalker, it looks like we received a strange email. Peter looked back at Li Ji and said. Thanks to the Buck friends, Moling 183 Mo Yu Yan Feng Hometown Lime Tree for the reward. Thank you very much. This book will be on the Sanjiang list starting at 2 p.m. tomorrow. I would like to thank all the Buck friends for their support. Chapter 97 Target America. What kind of email is this? Li Ji asked after taking a look. It looks like a video from the format, but Spider-Man, can you be sure that this thing doesn't have a virus? Peter tried to use several software to check the email sent by this unknown person, and after repeated confirmation several times, he said with certainty. It shouldn't be a virus, just an ordinary video file. But who would send a video to us? Okay, Spider-Man, we'll know after opening it. Mindy is a man of action and clicked on the video directly. In the endless darkness, the universe. The low and hoarse voice, the intense music, and the animation CG in the video, well, it turns out that this is a game promotion video. And it's not going to be released now, it will take a long time to be released, and now it's just an advanced promotion. Tisku made me so nervous, it turns out to be just a promotional video for a game. Mindy curled her lips in disdain. Li Ji and Peter were also confused for a while, and it seemed like they were facing a great enemy just now. I thought someone had discovered a secret here. It looks like it's just an advertisement. It seems that a large company directly rented a server to randomly send advertisements to the entire network. Peter turned off the video and shrugged. Okay, terrible spam. Li Ji also expressed helplessness. Are you coming to the base tomorrow? Peter asked Li Ji about his plans for tomorrow. We can still play ranked games. Mindy's level is simply amazing. Hit Girl's cute little face showed a smug expression. Oh, maybe not, I have an appointment tomorrow. Li Ji said he had something to do tomorrow. Is it a date with a beautiful girl? Mindy suddenly came up with gossip and burst out all of a sudden. She hugged Li Ji's neck and hung on Li Ji's back to inquire. Well, not really. On the contrary, he is a man who is very popular with women and is very easy to be disliked. Li Ji said while grabbing Mindy's little hand that was hugging his neck. Now that Mindy is with everyone, especially when Li Ji and Peter are helping her with her lessons, her personality has improved a lot. She used to be a bit unsociable. After all, she was led astray by her father. Now she not only has the cold temperament of hot girl, but also has the cuteness of the normal little girl when she takes off the mask. Okay, Mindy, let's start today's training. See if your knife throwing skills have improved recently. Li Ji said as he carried Mindy to the training room. After all, they all had a consensus to train Mindy together. And Mindy herself is really super talented. Frank and Big Daddy trained her in guns and weapons and various tactical movements and combat experience. Li Ji was responsible for training her cold weapon combat and knife throwing as well as close range dodging. Originally, Li Ji wanted to try to teach Hit Girl to practice internal energy. But it is obvious that practicing internal energy requires understanding the meridians and acupoints first. Li Ji's own skills are all given by the system, and then he can use them like instinct. But if you want him to clearly point out the direction of each acupoint and tendon, he really can't do it. And without the system, it takes a lot of time to achieve success in the practice of internal energy. So this aspect can only be given up. As for Peter, he is responsible for teaching Hot Girl's homework while training her reaction ability. Spider-Man has a super spider sense, and this ability cannot be given to others. But Peter can give others training and experience in this area, especially Mindy, whose growth has not yet been finalized, has great potential. The same training is not very effective for adults like Li Ji and Frank who have already been finalized. It can be said that under the guidance of a group of teachers, although Hit Girl Mindy has not been trained for a long time, her strength has been significantly improved compared to before. If this kind of training continues, no one can say how far this girl's future can go. Li Ji and Hit Girl went to train cold weapons and flying knives, while Peter was looking for patterns and design inspiration on the internet. As for the seemingly normal promotional video, Peter deleted it, and everyone forgot about it without taking it seriously. Dr. Ethan, do you know what I like most about you? On the top floor of the Stark Industries building, Tony was leaning on the sofa in his private residence and talking lazily. Which one? Dr. Ethan was standing on a short ladder to help Pepper straighten the position of an oil painting. Pepper had always felt that it was a little crooked since the staff hung it up. A little more to the left, Doc? Because of your humility, calm demeanor, and strength. Tony adjusted his sitting position. Oh, a little more to the right, Doc. I can find a position that is just right. Pepper made sure that he had found a comfortable position now. Tony, if you have time to praise the doc, why don't you come and help the doc? Thank you for your compliment, Tony. Maybe I'm not that strong. Ethan said as he came down the ladder. No, Doc, you are really strong, and I'm also glad that you can cheer up and accompany me to New York. And Pepper, since I paid for the employees, why should I, the boss, do this kind of work? Tony stood up and handed Ethan a glass of water and placed it in front of him. Thank you, Tony, because I can't live in pain forever. Since my family left me, I have made up my mind to do something meaningful and not waste my life casually. Ethan took a sip of the water and said, I'm not afraid of death, but I'm afraid that death is worthless. As long as I can live, I have the opportunity to do more things. Doctor, you are an honest gentleman. I think someone can learn a lot from you. Pepper said meaningfully. Yes, Doctor, we do a lot of useful things. Tony said in a low voice. The performance of MK2 is far beyond expectations. I think it will soon enter the actual combat stage. Ethan patted Tony on the shoulder and changed the subject. Yes, I believe we can do more for the world. But before saving the world, I think we should eat. This smells really good. Li Ji's date today is the chef of Tony's private party. When Li Ji first came today, he was shocked to see a middle-aged man with Middle Eastern appearance. After Pepper introduced him, I knew that he was Dr. Ethan. Didn't he die after playing a minor role? Why did he appear in New York? Well, at least this doctor is a good person. It's better to be alive than dead. Tony told me that you are the best chef in the United States. I really didn't expect you to be so young. When I was your age, I could only make hummus. In fact, even now, I can only make hummus. Dr. Ethan came to the kitchen island and chatted with Li Ji. Hummus is also a very good dish. Today, I prepared dishes with the flavors of your hometown for you, Doctor. Rosemary, cumin and a little fennel are used to make grilled minced lamb skewers. Li Ji smiled and chatted with Dr. Ethan. There are also vegetable meatballs made with hummus, and peat fish. The staple food is rice soaked in saffron water, and I used some Chinese Western methods to make lamb rice. Wow, just hearing about these dishes makes me very hungry. There are not many chefs in the United States who can cook Middle Eastern dishes. Ethan hasn't eaten food that suits his appetite for a long time. That's why I told you that this guy is the best chef in the United States. Tony came over with a glass of soda and put the soda on the dining table in front of Li Ji. But why do you never use honorifics for me? Tony was a little unhappy that Li Ji just used honorifics to address Ethan, but never used honorifics to address himself. Because the doctor is an honest gentleman. Li Ji repeated what Pepper said just now without a quiver. Pepper, who was setting up the dining table in the distance, couldn't help but laugh when he heard Li Ji's words. Okay, you little one. Tony was about to say something, but his cell phone rang at this time. Abidia, what's the matter? I know, I have been keeping a low profile recently as you said. You can handle the board of directors and stabilize the stock price first. Well, okay, that's it. Tony answered a call, which mentioned the stock price. Li Ji is now quite concerned about the stock price of Stark Group. After all, he bought tens of thousands of dollars. Although I know that it will rise in the future, it is now plummeting. Don't be forced to close the position before it rises. Mr. Tony, when will Stark Group stock stabilize? Li Ji asked Tony. When did you start to care about our company's stock price? Tony raised his eyebrows and said. Because I am a shareholder of Stark Group, I bought tens of thousands of dollars of stock. Li Ji replied. When did you buy it? When you announced the closure of the weapons department and stopped producing weapons. Tony looked at Li Ji with complicated eyes, and finally sorted out his thoughts and thought about how to word it before speaking. You do have a good eye for investment. He picked up the soda that was originally intended for Li Ji. To Jason's investment vision. Then he drank the soda in one breath. Well, Li Ji didn't get to drink Tony's soda again. He was actually quite curious about what flavor of soda Tony bought. In the vast Pacific Ocean, a freighter flying the Egyptian flag was cutting through the waves. Hunizan, a member of the Ten Rings gang, was sitting in the captain's room and communicating with someone via a satellite phone. You didn't get rid of Tony Stark. And you let him come back in his swagger. How dare you ask me for the follow-up money? The person on the other end of the phone said a little angrily. Mr. Abidia, Tony Stark will definitely die, I promise you. But you'd better prepare the money first, otherwise we will have to go and get it ourselves. Husano said lightly. What are you going to do? Come to New York to kill Tony? I think so, we're almost there. The freighter's destination is the United States. Chapter 98 The Conflicting Parties. Husano has already got enough food for Deacon Fess, and now he is shipping the goods to the United States. In fact, there is no need for him to come, but it is obvious that his kidnapping of Tony Stark was known by the high-level gang members and even the Chinese boss. The gang members are very dissatisfied with him for messing up this business, which makes him feel a huge sense of crisis. He knows how the boss treats those useless trash. Husano wants to make up for his mistakes as much as possible, and even asks other good players in the gang in the western region of China to come to help. Only by making up for the mistakes of the last operation can Husano feel at ease. Have you noticed that the vampires seem to have stopped recently? Peter, who was assembling equipment in the base, was chatting with Li Ji. That's a good thing, maybe the trap of those guys from S.H.I.E.L.D. worked. Li Ji was teaching Mindy more hidden weapon techniques. After using it last time, Li Ji had a high opinion of the use of the mechanical arm assembled by Peter. At least it raised his combat level by 1 level. Although it seems that the system has not improved Li Ji's current rating, Li Ji feels that his combat power after wearing the mechanical arm is completely different. So now Peter is making extra mechanical arms, but the gold titanium alloy is not available at present, and even Frank cannot get so many high-quality armors without limit. Now Peter is making ordinary titanium alloy mechanical armor, which is made for other members of the team. Because Li Ji knows how dangerous the Marvel world is, and the enemies he will face in the future will become more and more powerful. More powerful equipment can give other members of the team more self-protection ability. Especially the experience of Mike that he saw before, the tragic situation of the entire team being annihilated made Li Ji have a shadow in his heart. For him, the current teammates are all friends. Whether it is Peter or Frank who joined first, or Damon and Hit Girl who came later. He doesn't want his friends to die on the street like that one day, and there will be no body in the end. This time, Peter's odd armor is a weakened version, canceling the ability to shoot lasers on the fingers, which is also the most energy-consuming thing. Just like Li Ji's armor, it can emit ultraviolet infrared or lasers by changing the spectrum. So this kind of armor requires 2 micronuclear batteries to drive each arm. And if the laser is continuously fired, the energy will be consumed rapidly. Peter cancelled the ability to fire lasers because Li Ji said that he could not provide a large number of micronuclear batteries indefinitely. After all, he bought it with reputation points, and it is really impossible to supply it indefinitely. The armor that does not use lasers only needs 1 nuclear battery to provide enough energy, and the battery life is longer. In this way, Li Ji has gained nearly 100,000 points of reputation points because of the viaduct battle, which is enough for him to squander for a long time. As for the drawings and micro-nuclear batteries that Li Ji exchanged from the system, Peter never asked. After all, everyone has secrets. This is a kind of privacy. There is no so-called nothing can be said to others bullshit tradition in the United States. If the other party does not want to say something, then don't ask too much. This is the most basic courtesy of this personal society. Just like Peter never told Li Ji why he became Spider-Man, Frank never said why he kept killing criminals. Why does Big Daddy always go to trouble various criminals? Since others don't say it, it is his privacy. Please don't ask too much. As long as everyone has the same philosophy, then you can become a close comrade in arms. After teaching Mindy to practice throwing knives for a while, Li Ji said he wanted to go out for a walk. Since the battle on the viaduct, they haven't been out to be street heroes for a long time. The first reason is that they are disgusted by the affairs of S.H.I.E.L.D., and the second reason is that Frank warned everyone to keep a low profile recently because they might be targeted by the government. In fact, they have been noticed by S.H.I.E.L.D. for a long time, but because of the relationship between Frank and Nick, S.H.I.E.L.D. has never troubled them. Li Ji is going out now not because he suddenly wants to find a few criminals to beat up, but because he has an important task on his hands. The only task left to fight the Stanich family is Hank. He is ready to complete this task. After all, it has been delayed for more than a month. Frank has already given Li Ji Hank's information. Hank's full name is Hank Lawfield, an American of Italian descent. His grandfather traveled across the ocean to the United States during World War II to escape the war in Europe. Hank grew up in a community of Italian descendants when he was a teenager. Many people here have connections with the Raincoat Mafia and the Sicilian Mafia in Italy. Hank, who grew up in this environment, joined the Italian Mafia family early and became the right-hand man of Franco Stanich. Franco always gave him important things to deal with, because Hank was always trustworthy and he never betrayed Franco. The Stanich family's industry suffered a heavy blow during this period, not to mention the Stanich family members and industries that were destroyed and massacred by Frank. The Hudson River warehouse incident alone was a headache for the Stanich family. At that time, Li Ji and the other two only subdued the security guards of the warehouse and did not kill them. They easily confessed the Stanich family's affairs. Some people who had no good feelings towards the Stanich family used this incident to hit the Stanich family hard. Even if the Stanich family had some connections with the military, those military bosses would not get involved in the vampire incident for such a thing. Especially after the vampire farm incident, the issue of vampires has become something that everyone in the government avoids. The current Stanich family is like a dangerous building in a storm. This former top mafia family in the United States is already shaky and may collapse at the next moment. Franco Stanich thinks he knows Hank very well and thinks he is an absolutely loyal person. He trusts him even more than his wife. But sometimes Franco will make mistakes. After all, people's hearts are always the most difficult to guess. Is this all the information you can get? A white man stood in front of the glass window in an office in a building and asked Hank. This man is so burly, he is 2 meters tall, and his body is even more terrifying than his height. Under his white suit are thick muscles. These muscles with terrible power are wrapped in fat that looks bloated, which makes this man weigh more than 150 kilograms. But this body shape does not give the man a bloated feeling, but makes people feel his fierceness hidden under those fat layers. The pressure the man brought to Hank was enormous. This man's momentum was far beyond that of Franco. Hank's lips were a little dry. Yes, these are the main industries of the Stanich family on the East Coast. There are also some industries in Italy, but the scale of that part is not large. Very good, Mr. Hank, I understand. You can go back first. The sturdy white man waved his hand to let Hank leave. So, sir, my previous proposal. Hank suppressed his fear and asked the man with courage. I will consider it. You go first. The man did not directly answer whether he agreed to Hank's proposal. Hank wanted to ask another question, but was overwhelmed by the man's terrible momentum. In the end, he gritted his teeth and left here. After Hank left, a slender woman walked into the office and asked, "Did you really agree to his conditions?" "Impossible, he can betray Franco, and he will betray me in the future." The man's tone was still so indifferent. "I don't like to take in a person who sells out his boss for profit." "Then what about the Stanich family?" The woman walked to the wine rack in the office, took out a bottle of red wine, poured a glass and handed it to the man. Keep it for now. I need Franco to charge in the front until he loses his function, and then we can take over his industries. The sturdy man took the wine glass and said, "Stupid Lunko has delayed our plan. It won't be easy to find such a fool to cooperate with in the future." The woman also poured herself a glass of wine and said with some regret, "There will always be a way, as long as you still have wisdom in your head." The man who looks very fierce and thinks with his muscles said this. Maybe his inner self is not as simple as his appearance. An Italian descendant settlement in New York, this is where Hank lives. Luigi got this information in the intelligence he got. His plan tonight is also very simple, just wait and see. Anyway, he has to keep a low profile recently and can't be a hero on the street casually. He has plenty of time to wait for Hank to appear. Luigi was ready for a protracted war, but Hank showed up much earlier than he expected. He had only been lying in ambush on a tree in the distance for less than 30 minutes when Hank appeared in Luigi's side into his car. The license plate and model of the car were exactly the same as in the information. Luigi used a telescope to take a look at Hank, who was parking his car in front of the door and preparing to open the door to go home. They looked the same, and Luigi was ready to sneak into Hank's mansion to get rid of this guy. But before Luigi left the tree, an accident happened. Hank, who had just opened the door of his house, had not waited for him to enter the house when a violent explosion broke out at his door. Then the explosion spread throughout his house like a rapidly spreading disease. In just a few seconds, the mansion had been blown into rubble, and even some of the surrounding houses were affected by the explosion. The huge explosion almost shattered all the glass on the entire street, and Hank, who was loyal to the explosion, had no body left. Luigi was still hiding in the tree in a daze. What's going on? Thanks to the book friends, book friend 161,103,093,654,490 Batista 01 Dark Wind Shadow the fatty who got into the book Moling, 183 Mo you little Suno stupid alliance pig 3 liters of blood for the reward thank you very much oh. Chapter 99 Serum. What the hell is this? How come you died before I even started? Luigi had no idea what was going on. However, the system did send a message. The Stanich family mission failed. This time it was really weird. He had worked so hard to complete so many missions before, but at the last critical moment, when he was about to complete the mission, he actually failed. This was really funny. Luigi was completely confused. Fortunately, the system gave him another prompt message. The mission was interrupted manually, and the mission began to reset. Task update: Stop Jin Bing's ambition. The mission reward is a random B-level mall item. Note: all items in the mall are included. Important reminder. This mission is marked as a B-level mission. The host will be in danger of life if you execute it. Please decide according to the situation. What the FXXK? The mysterious harmony appeared again. Luigi didn't know whether to cry or laugh. What the hell is this? It's good for a D-level reward to become a B-level, but the mission rating is life-threatening? Then should I do it or not? And what is this ambition to stop Jin Bing? What is Jin Bing's ambition? Please can you give me some hints? What exactly does Kingpin want to do, boss? Oh, and there is one more important point. Who is Kingpin? Is there such a guy in the Marvel world? Luigi thought hard for a long time before he remembered a guy. The last fat guy in the Punisher arcade seemed to be called King or something. It seems that except for this guy who can compete with Kingpin, he really can't remember anyone else called Kingpin. After all, he is not a hardcore Marvel fan, and his memory is a bit old, so he can't recall more things. I only remember that this guy called Kingpin seems to be very powerful, and he's the most powerful gangster boss in the world. Then? It seems that there is nothing else. All Luigi's memories about Kingpin are so many, so what is the ambition to stop Kingpin? System, can you tell me? Well, it seems that the system does not intend to give Luigi more hints. Let's imagine that Kingpin is a gangster boss, so what should the goal of a gangster boss be? Unify the gangs in the world? It seems that if this is the case, the best way to stop him is to kill the fat man. But whether he can kill him is a question. This is the first time that the system reminds him that a certain task is life-threatening. Luigi could only scratch his head. It is estimated that Hank's death is also related to Kingpin. As for why Kingpin wants to kill Hank, Luigi does not know. Maybe it is related to the Stanich family. Could it be that Kingpin's ambition is also related to the Stanich family? Luigi suddenly thought that it seems that he may have to pay attention to this family again recently. Looking at the Hanks mansion that has become a ruin, Li Ji can only leave here silently. It was still early, so Li Ji also went to the repair shop where Blade temporarily settled. Now Frank has been stationed here. Because the serum of the vampire virus has made a breakthrough. The female hematologist brought by Blade, Jane Lin, has been studying this aspect for a long time before. Now with Mike's serum as a sample, the research has made a breakthrough. Good evening, Frank. Li Ji walked into the repair shop and went straight to the area behind the repair shop. This is where Blade and his group are staying. Mike is also recuperating here. Good evening, Nightwalker. You didn't play games with Spider-Man in the base today. Frank mocked Li Ji and Peter for their inaction these days. How is Mike? Li Ji silently changed the subject. This poor guy looks much better recently. He originally wanted to return to the team to investigate who betrayed them, but I persuaded him to stay for the time being. Frank frowned as he spoke. I haven't told him the truth yet. Fortunately, Zon Kalen's research has made a breakthrough and now needs his assistance. So he is willing to stay here for now. But we can't keep him forever. He will always have to go back. Maybe you should find a time to talk to him, either let him give up revenge for the team and pretend that nothing happened, or let him stay here. Li Ji has also known Mike these days. This man has a lot of similarities with Frank in terms of personality. They are both serious soldiers, both are strict with themselves, and both are dedicated to their duties in the army. The two also have similarities in personality. This gives Frank and Mike more common language. That's why Li Ji said this to Frank and asked Frank to persuade Mike. If Mike is determined to avenge his brothers and track down the so-called leaker, he may find those high-level people. You mentioned before that S.H.I.E.L.D. also suffered a lot. Li Ji said S.H.I.E.L.D. also frowned. If Mike really finds out about S.H.I.E.L.D. and wants to make trouble for S.H.I.E.L.D., do you think S.H.I.E.L.D. will let him go? S.H.I.E.L.D. will only make him disappear from the face of the earth. Frank's words were firm. The most special violent agency in this country will not talk about human feelings with you casually. Anyone who dares to challenge its authority has only two results. Either destroy this beast or be destroyed by this beast. Obviously, Mike is not capable of destroying S.H.I.E.L.D. Frank shook his head and said, Okay, Nightwalker, let me tell you some good news. The serum research of Janet Lin has reached a critical stage, and the live research will begin today. Li Ji and Frank were walking shoulder to shoulder towards Janet Lin's laboratory. Really? This is the best news I've heard in all these days. No matter how you look at it, the existence of vampires makes Li Ji feel unhappy. It would be best for him to solve the vampire problem once and for all. Good evening, everyone. Li Ji walked into Zon Kalen's laboratory and greeted everyone in the laboratory. Blade, Whist, Zon Kalen, and Mike are all in the laboratory tonight. Because the most important live experiment is about to begin, everyone wants to know the results as soon as possible. Everyone nodded to Li Ji as a return gift. You came at the right time, Nightwalker. Tonight will be a major turning point in the relationship between humans and vampires. It would be best if you could come and witness it with your own eyes. Hematologist Zon Kalen said to Li Ji with a confident smile. Zon Kalen is a pretty black woman, and as a successful woman, she has always been confident, especially in the field she is good at. She originally had a bright future, but it was ruined by vampires. The vampire virus in her body is as dangerous as a time bomb. Although it was suppressed by garlic essence, it did not mean that the virus disappeared. When she thought that she might become a vampire, Jen Kalen felt disgusted. She was a devout Catholic, how could she become such a filthy thing? She is now committed to studying the vampire virus serum, but the progress is slower than she expected. Fortunately, Blade brought her good news. He found a special person who is not infected with the virus after being bitten. Jen Kalen came to New York City as quickly as possible and started working. Regardless of the fact that Mike was still a wounded soldier, she still drew a lot of blood from Mike for experiments. After repeated tests and comparisons, she finally made the first serum, which she named Purification. The subject of the experiment was a vampire captured by Blade Warrior. It was unknown whether it was a mixed blood or pure blood. Now the vampire was tied up tightly and his mouth was sealed. Jen Kalen approached the vampire with a syringe and a smile on her face. But this smile was very creepy no matter how Li Ji looked at it. Has she always been so scary? Li Ji asked Blade next to him in a low voice. No, sometimes it's still very gentle, but it can be like this occasionally. Blade replied in the same low voice. The light blue serum was injected into the vampire who couldn't struggle, and the vampire who was injected with the serum quickly reacted. Large groups of black gas came out of the vampire's nose and ears, and a little came out of his mouth, but because it was sealed, not much leaked out. The vampire was twitching all over, and his pupils kept rolling up. It was obviously in great pain, but because his mouth was blocked, he couldn't scream. The whole process lasted for nearly 20 seconds before the vampire stopped emitting black smoke and twitching. But sweat had soaked his whole body. It seemed that this serum did make him suffer a lot. Blade walked forward and tried to stick the mithril long knife directly on his exposed skin. The original vampire would feel a burning sensation on his skin when he touched mithril items, and his skin would be burned quickly. But now this person didn't have this feature, and then he checked the features of several other vampires and found that they had indeed disappeared. Now this vampire, oh no, now it should be called a human, now this human has returned to normal. The vampire nodded to everyone to indicate that the experiment was indeed successful. Pa. Lychee applauded for the success of Zon Kalen's experiment, but he soon found that he was the only one in the room applauding, so he could only stop awkwardly. So now the experiment is considered successful. Lychee said to ease his embarrassment. It is considered half successful. We still need to observe this person's condition in the future to see if there will be repeated phenomena. Zon Kalen said with the rigor of a scientist. And if the experiment is successful, we will need more serum. After saying that, he glanced at Mike, who was standing aside. Hearing Zon Kalen's words, everyone turned their eyes to stare at Mike, because everyone found a very serious problem. It seems that Mike's blood is needed to make serum. Mike obviously realized this. I think my blood volume may not be able to save everyone. His throat was trembling with nervousness. He didn't want to be drained of blood by this female scientist instead of being sucked dry by the vampire. Zon Kalen looked at Mike, whose voice was trembling with nervousness, and said, "Don't worry, I already know that it is an enzyme in your blood that is working. Now I just need to collect a certain amount of blood, and I can cultivate them in the laboratory." Mike's heart was finally at ease after hearing Zon Kalen's words. Chapter 100 C-Class. The final effect of the serum depends on the clinical response of the vampire in the experiment. If it is successful, the demise of the vampire empire can be put on the agenda. Now, Janet Lynn has become the key protection target. Anyway, Frank and Blade are guarding here every day. And Lychee said after seeing this experiment tonight that he would come here to guard before the experiment is completely successful. Everything is afraid of being interrupted at the last minute. Recently, we must be more low-key and not let others pay more attention to it. Now some people led by S.H.I.E.L.D. are pretending to be with the vampire empire. Let Deacon Fess think that his plan was successful. After all, he paid a huge amount of wealth for this plan. This is why S.H.I.E.L.D. moved the Bible and let the SWAT team escort it. If he knew the truth of all this, he would probably want to bite Nick Fury's neck off. Of course, he must be able to bite it. In addition to protecting Janet Lynn, Lychee now has another important thing to do. That is to improve his own strength. After all, he had recently gained nearly 100,000 points of reputation. In addition to keeping some for emergencies, Lychee was prepared to spend all the other reputation. In particular, he clearly felt that the enemies he would face in the future would become stronger and stronger. At first, he only had conflicts with street gangs, and then he inexplicably provoked the Stanich family, and later he was involved in the vampire incident. Now he might have to fight with Jin Bing, a world-class gangster. These things one by one made Lychee breathless. It has only been more than 3 months since he got the system, but Lychee felt like a long time had passed. The current enemies are so powerful, who knows what kind of guys he will encounter in the future? When Lychee took the first step of his choice, he could no longer look back. Since you have been involved in these incidents, don't think about getting out easily. Even if you want to get away, others will not let you go so easily. For example, Deacon Fess, he already knows who is constantly destroying his plans, and the Nightwalker is already on his must-kill list. It's just that he is very busy now, busy uniting vampires to complete his plan, so he has no time to care. Once he has time, Nightwalker must be someone he must get rid of. The same is true for the Stanich family. Although they are now in a mess, Franco is busy putting out fires every day. But his hatred for Frank and Nightwalker has not diminished at all. As long as it is possible, he will not miss the opportunity to crush these two guys to ashes. And the Kingpin who may be encountered in the future. Lychee feels that his head is big. He is not an indestructible cockroach. The last explosion on the viaduct almost took his life. If he hadn't been equipped with a mechanical armor to resist a considerable part of the impact at that time, he is likely to be directly hung on the spot. Therefore, it is necessary to enhance his own strength. Li Ji has now returned home. He opened the system and began to choose his own strengthening direction. The strengthening of the Vajra indestructible body divine art is necessary. There is no more suitable one among the D-level exercises. There is a defensive art of the 9 Dragons Holy Fire cover, but I thought it was too expensive so I didn't buy it. Although he has reputation points now, the Vajra indestructible body divine art has been upgraded to the mastery level. If he turns around and gets the 9 Dragons Holy Fire cover, it is not worth it. Moreover, the defense of the 9 Dragons Holy Fire cover is a dual defense method of energy defense and physical defense. Although it looks awesome, because the ability is dispersed, the upper limit of each defense is not high. So Li Ji still chose to upgrade the Vajra indestructible body divine art directly. After all, the perfect level of Vajra indestructible body divine art can resist the damage of 1,800 joules of kinetic energy. In short, as long as he is not shot directly by weapons such as assault rifles at a very close distance, basically other guns and even the fragments produced by the explosion of ordinary grenades cannot hurt him. He directly took out 15,000 points of the 100,000 reputation points to upgrade his Vajra indestructible body divine art to perfection. After that, he upgraded the Great Sun Tathagata seal. In fact, Li Ji wanted to buy other skills. But the skills that have the potential to be upgraded to C level in the D level mall are very expensive. For example, when he had earned more than 30,000 reputation points, Li Ji wanted to buy a more powerful technique, preferably one that could be upgraded to C level. However, the price of techniques that can be upgraded to C level is very expensive, starting at 30,000 reputation points, which is a huge difference compared to those techniques that can only be upgraded to D+ level at most. So Li Ji had never exchanged it before, until he met Black Blue and Miss Smith, and was blown up by them in the warehouse and ran around like a dog. In the end, he had to exchange for a high-frequency shotgun. It was not cost-effective to exchange technological items directly from the system. Not only was the price expensive, but the ability was still locked. It was better to get a blueprint. The blueprint of the exchanged mechanical armor was optimized by Peter after it was made, which was much stronger than the pure system. Of course, if you want to exchange the blueprint, you have to be able to make it. If you don't have a genius brain like Peter Parker, it's best not to try to make equipment with a blueprint. The Great Sun Tathagata seal did not improve Li Ji much in terms of power level. But just as the system introduced, the Great Sun Tathagata seal helped Li Ji in the spiritual aspect, although it was only at the minor level and not much could be seen. However, although the system rarely explained too much, Li Ji even forgot the existence of the system many times. But every explanation given by the system was true and credible, such as the introduction, which said that it had a certain restraining effect on evil creatures. After Li Ji's previous experiment on the viaduct when fighting vampires, it was not as simple as the system said that it had a certain restraining effect. The Great Sun Tathagata seal, which was only at the minor level, could burn the vampire to ashes, and it seemed that the damage was higher than that caused by using mithril. Therefore, the system's words should not be underestimated, and even a level should be upgraded to understand them. Perhaps in the definition of the system, the so-called evil creatures it called were something more powerful, far beyond the comparison of vampires. The upgrade cost of the Great Sun Tathagata seal was relatively expensive, double the price of ordinary D-level exercises. The upgrades of ordinary D-level exercises were 1,000 minor success, 3,000 mastery, 5,000 major success, 10,000 perfection. The Great Sun Tathagata seal requires 2,000 minor success, 6,000 mastery, 10,000 major success, and 20,000 perfection. This is the difference between a technique that can be upgraded to a higher level and a technique that can only be upgraded within the current level. Now Li Ji feels that he has been in the D-level hero rating for long enough, and now he strongly wants to upgrade to the C-level rating. Because only at a higher level will the system unlock more permissions, and there will be more things to exchange in the mall. There are still more than 85,000 reputation points left, and Li Ji directly spent 36,000 reputation points to upgrade the Great Sun Tathagata seal to perfection. The feeling that this upgrade to perfection brought to Li Ji was different from the last time that the Teng Jiao Gong was upgraded to perfection. The upgrade of the Teng Jiao Gong brought Li Ji a boost in strength. The Great Sun Tathagata Seal not only brought Li Ji a boost in strength, but more importantly, it brought a sense of spiritual stability, which is a mysterious feeling that cannot be described in words. Li Ji could only feel that his head was as if it had been hit by cold water, and Li Ji could only vaguely perceive the power that originally flowed in his body. Then he guided the internal energy according to the method of system infusion. But now Li Ji seemed to be able to see the energy rushing in his body directly. They were like rivers, running back and forth in his body. A huge internal energy stream vertically penetrated his spine. From the spine, it dispersed into 4 large tributaries, flowing to the limbs respectively. After that, it continued to disperse in the limbs, splitting into countless small tributaries, infusing energy into every corner of Li Ji's body. And all the energy will return to the spine through various nerve pathways after completing a cycle. The energy that has completed the cycle is stored in Li Ji's lower abdomen and brain by the spine. The energy in the lower abdomen comes from the Teng Jiao Gong, which represents simple power. The energy in the brain comes from the Great Sun Tathagata Seal. Their number is extremely rare, but now it is very condensed. They are concentrated in Li Ji's Shinman part. This part of energy represents spirit. After Li Ji upgraded the Great Sun Tathagata Seal to the perfect level, the two forces began to merge with each other in the spine. The energy of the Great Sun Tathagata Seal emits a soft white light, while the Teng Jiao Gong emits a slightly dazzling purple light. The white energy of the Great Sun Tathagata Seal merges with the purple energy of the Teng Jiao Gong in the spine, and is constantly expelled and purified with jet black purple energy during the fusion process. This represents the impurities in the Teng Jiao Gong. The white spiritual energy is constantly correcting the simple power energy, making this energy softer and easier to control. It was not until all the energy circulated 12 times that the energy of the Great Sun Tathagata Seal completed the transformation of the Teng Jiao Gong. Now the Teng Jiao Gong energy is no longer dazzling purple light in Li Ji's perception, but a softer one, emitting a transparent light like the finest amethyst. The energy flowing in the body is no longer 2 distinct energies, but the purple energy center emits a faint white light. This represents the perfect fusion of the two forces. The area in the lower abdomen that stores power energy and the area in the Shinman part that stores spiritual energy have established a small hub. The two energies are no longer independent, but have begun to be connected. Li Ji tried to clench his fist and concentrate his energy into his hand. The energy that he originally needed to control was now controlled by just using the thoughts in his mind. This is the feeling of power being controlled by the mind. Li Ji tried and gathered all the energy in his body into his right hand. The energy river in his body instantly filled the tributary of his right arm. The soft purple energy instantly covered Li Ji's right arm, and some of the energy even began to overflow, making Li Ji's palm part appear a strange light purple. Li Ji instantly dispersed the energy. He just felt how terrible it would be if he concentrated all the energy in his body on one point and exploded. The overflowing energy made Li Ji feel that he could punch through heavy armor with one punch. But this is his home, and he is not going to try it at home. When he is free, he will go to the training room of the base to try it. When Li Ji upgraded the Great Sun Tathagata Seal to perfection, the system reminder sounded. Congratulations to the host for upgrading your level evaluation. You have mastered some mental and power abilities, which make you stronger. You also learn how to use high-tech equipment to fight, and the mixed fighting style will give you an advantage in fighting against evil. You have now completed the experience of a mortal hero and taken a solid step towards a superhero. Your current evaluation level, C System Evaluation, C, you are already an important character in a superhero animation, and you can survive at least 3 episodes in a season of animation. Thanks to book friends, Batista 01 Shine Fanglian 161,112,230,656,184 Refuse Unreal Nickname is not a number Xi for the reward during debugging. This book is currently on the Sanjiang list, and friends with Sanjiang tickets can help voto. Oh, thank you. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.